Welcome in, everybody, to our another day of VCS English. Another wonderful day. After yesterday, we have very, very likely some locks for playoffs, or at minimum, it's going to be a really hotly contested end to the split. So we're excited to bring you the remaining games because now we're just worried about seeding for the remainder of the split. I'm Rebel Fox, and alongside me, Crincy. Crincy, how's it going? How you doing? How's VCS
Yeah.
handling for you?
Doing pretty great lately. I mean, I just now saw that playoffs are basically locked for Cerberus. I mean, it would be very impressive to just kind of still fall out of playoffs. I mean, you just need to maybe have some rule changes within that, and Saigon Buffalo absolutely stomping over Garm and some other stuff happening. Either way, we have two exciting games up in front of us with Team Flash against Box Esports and Team Wales against Team Secret. So, especially looking towards this bottom part of the table, it's going to be very interesting to see the last few matches of those teams that are likely to go into the relegation zone.
Yeah, we'll basically break this split in half from here. There's still the extreme long shot that Saigon Buffalo can make a play to try to pass Cerberus and Wales in the standings, but both of them have 2 O's over top of Saigon Buffalo, so that's much less likely. It just depends on whether or not they use game score head-to-head as criteria more than anything else, and that would still require a ridiculous play from Saigon Buffalo to be able to catch one of them in the grand scheme. The more interesting part is, like you were attesting to, this bottom half of the bracket. Saigon Buffalo sitting at 5 and 7, Flash and Secret both sitting at 4 and 8, and Box Esports sitting at 1 and 11. I guess that's not as interesting, but these other 3 teams currently negative, basically right in the thick of it with one another to compete for relegation tournament. For one of these teams to have to go play for their lives, which is crazy. Thinking that, like, Saigon Buffalo is here despite being our second seed from the last 2 splits. Team Secret is here despite being a playoff contender for the last 2 years. And of course, Team Flash has kind of been spiking as of lately with a roster that's a lot better on paper than what we would expect a relegation tournament team to look like.
And you already said it, right? Team Flash is definitely spiking. And considering that they are 6th place, I think they look kind of good. I mean, also like the recent form is not looking too shabby in general. They were 2-0 above Team Secret, which is like the direct competitor for this last safe spot, so to say. And they also took a game from Saigon Buffalo, a team that was looking at least ambitious towards playoffs in the recent times. And also, I mean, they had this 2-0 defeat to SBTC, which kind of does look bad. But I mean, SBTC, in their own regard, look really freaking good right now. I mean, they're like the second best team right now, de facto, in the standings. We see it here as our beautiful producer was rolling up the standings. They are 8 and 4. No other team is close to that, with Cerberus being a whole match score down to them right now and also playing them yet again. And for Team Flash, what I want to see now is them stampeding over the other 2 bottom tier teams and making it look easy against Box Esports, which is of course a team that also had like their own good games. I mean, there was this one series against Cerberus in which they looked good, and also the other series where they were taking one game in the recent times. But Box Esports in general, they are a team that don't really look like they are like on the level of Team Flash in general, and that is what I want to see from Team Flash, to really show that the difference is still pretty big.
Yeah, despite some of the later season kind of changes from Box and some of the stuff that we've seen them capable of doing and having beaten Cerberus, they weren't able to kind of tie that together to being a big shift in how well that they were playing, because eventually they kind of got locked in the basement no matter the circumstance, despite the late season push. And so now Team Flash, I mean, I know this is a roster that, like, you look at like Yoshino, and Yoshino shouldn't be relegated, but then even like Fukwon, Jane, Puddin, Sora has been having an amazing second half to the split. This is not a roster that's probably going to lose inside a relegation tournament, but you never want to end up being against like there's this one team that's coming to mind. The original team of Killer Queen, if you remember that one, when they came through the relegation tournament, they were actually disgusting. Luxury Esports, that's who it was. Because Luxury Esports, we did not expect to beat either of the relegation teams either, and then they crushed both the relegation teams, which was really wild. So you don't want to put yourself in that situation in any circumstance, which is why, Team Flash, Team Secret, especially today, as of anything else, the 2 separate series, Box Esports first against the Team Flash, and a little bit later, we're going to see Wales versus Team Secret. But we're really paying attention to these 2 teams, because, again, we are very competitive for our final spot here at the very bottom, right above Box Esports in that relegation tournament.
Yeah, like you mentioning Fukwon over there. I mean, especially like his Viego games have been absolutely stellar, especially in the early game. And I remember the series against Team Secret, I think it was, where he was absolutely dominating. And from start to finish, it was looking like a very clean affair on the side of Team Flash. And for Box Esports, I mean, the recent surge has been, at least admittedly, been there, right? I mean, Cerberus doing Cerberus things also comes to play to that. And also the other team of which they took a game of was Team Secret. It's not like really like the best part of the branch, basically. either way, Box Esports, if they get a good game going, I have seen one of those where it was like they were winning skirmishes all around, but never really getting a goal lead because they were just not winning lanes. And where another team would have like a 4K goal lead, it was like a 1K goal lead for them basically because they kind of just aren't that committed to it. And for them, I just want them to prove me wrong and show to us, viewers and casters, that they are definitely a team that, while they will absolutely play relegation, that they are still a good chunk above the VCSB teams and will instill fear in their minds before they have to play them for these last VCS spots.
Yeah, their combination in the back half of the split of Tom Rio and then I think actually Nogo has been my favorite player on the roster for a significant margin of it. Not to say that like Slows and Zodiac and Sunmer have not had their moments. And this team has come together as much better unit as this split has gone on. But Nogo specifically and that combination with Tom Rio seems to have defined this team more than anything else. So when Nogo is going and they're not just like getting absolutely crushed in laning phases and they could take this game into mid game and have that very powerful unit of mid laner, they're looking a lot better as opposed to Team Flash, where like you got I don't know. What is your opinion on Jane? Because my opinion has been wavering on Jane over the course of the entire split. I've seen moments of really high brilliance, and I've also seen moments where it looks like Jane is still just like a rookie who is making really terrible mistakes that is costing his team, pretty consistently.
I think he's just not a bad mid laner, but also not a good mid laner either. Really, he's like just kind of like a middling mid laner in general. It's kind of like a boring answer, of course, but I think there's like, of course, a huge gap between him and like the top mid laners. Between like, I mean, we have seen absolutely awesome performances from Glory, from Kati, from maybe even Artifact on a losing team. This bit much lesser than in the past, but Jane in general, I think he looks like a more stable solution for them. But he doesn't really have like this insane champion pool or just like the position where he hard carries games, aside from like a few Gragas games where he had like awesome cask plays and something. But to me, it just shows that he defaults to champions like Gragas, like Annie, a little bit like Talia and Rice, even to some extent, that he is not really like the main carry of the team anyway, but he also doesn't really need to be because they have Yoshi in the top lane, they have Fuguan in the jungle, and that in their wins is just enough for it.
That it is. Interestingly, also, we're going to get plenty of looks at some of the players that are going to be in contention for Rookie of the Split between Flashbox and Team Secret that are playing today. I think a lot of us are leaning towards specifically Yang for Team Secret being the best of the best. But what would it take from somebody on Flash or maybe somebody else in the entire VCS to take that idea away from you? Or I guess if it's not Kang for you right now, who is your number 2 or your number 1 right now in terms of Rookie of the Split voting? Because this is something we've been talking about since way back in like week 2 with Box Esports having a lot of young players. Who is it on one of these rosters that you think is currently standing out more than anybody else? Let's kick Yang out of the conversation because right now I think Yang's at the top for a lot of people.
That's a really good
Okay.
question because like the first who comes to mind is obviously Kiang on Team Secret because he's like the only one not being on box
He's a beast.
basically, and
Yes.
the thing is Tomio a rookie? I think you all were talking about him before and as well, so I think
Yes.
he isn't even a rookie, right?
Our rules are very strange with how rookies work here. Apparently, you have to have like 4 series or something like that, which means that technically, like Jane and Puddin are both like rookies. There's a bunch of nonsense words that are being thrown into everything. Most of Box is still rookies, even though they've had some games and starting roles and things like that. So we're basically just making the assumption that most of Team Flash's rookies that have been on Cerberus are probably going to be starting. The Team Secret's going to, or the Kiang, Kratos, Guri, who's been starting most of the split as well, and then most of Box Esports are all rookies.
I mean, it's not Kratos for sure. I mean, I've seen him play, and I don't want to see it again. It's kind of rough because like, he is of course a rookie. Like it's obvious that they aren't really performing like the Yoshinos and Kias of the league in the top lane immediately. Like, this would be insane if they would do that. I mean, either way, if Jane qualifies, I would put my money on Jane in this race. To some extent, maybe put in as well. But I saw him on servers before, and to me personally, he doesn't feel like a rookie, so it wouldn't really be fair to like put him into this conversation.
Yeah, that was the thing about me is like I don't know when voting comes around. I know there's gonna be a lot of legal rookies, but I don't know that I'm gonna be voting for anybody who's already had plenty. Somebody who's been playing on and off for years on Cerberus's team just because they needed kind of substitutes here and there does not qualify as a rookie in my eyes. So yeah, I think Kiang has run away with it. And outside of that, I mean, for Box, Emo wasn't
Tomio, if he
bad.
counts.
Emo was pretty good back in the day, even though Nogo ended up crushing. I don't think we can even count Sora. I think Sora's had too much of a split before, so it's even worse. That like I think Sora's had a much better back half of the split than we've seen. So it might just end up coming down to Kiang and then to anybody else who's into the discussion, which ends up just being a Kiang angle. So, ooh, look at that. We're jumping into draft for game number 1 here. Oh,
Hey, draft.
oh, look at that. We have 2 subs here on Flash.
We do. That's Ikigai. That was like your
Let's
best friend from back in the day, right?
Yes, I've been waiting for
TQ
Ikigai to
support.
show up all split. Let's go.
I mean, generally, you have been a fan of him, right? I mean, there have been like some
Yes.
games where he was like completely not good, and there have been games where he's like, I mean, especially for a Wookiee, being very promising. Either way, him against Tommy is also like, to some extent, like a mirror matchup for me, because I mean, I could say the same about Tommy, but he always puts out these cheesy gangs in the early game. Sometimes he looks like an absolute clown, and sometimes he looks like an absolute genius with it. So let's wait and see how it will play out. Looks like a jungle matchup from the looks of it, though, as Sejuani is locked in. We don't see much solo lane Sejuani anymore, sadly, which was a lot more exciting to see. And the Wukong at the answer, not very much of news to us.
Yeah, it's kind of wild. I suppose we've seen this a couple of times where like teams have debuted rookies on the split. We know Team Flash is also in a really weird position where it's like, okay, they can't really climb out of the basement, but they can fall to relegation. I'm not sure they care all that much. It is weird that right before the end of the season that they're doing something like this, which makes me think that like maybe Ikigai and TQ have actually been having really good games. Although again, I thought that Sora was having a great second half of the split, and Fook 1, I've actually been pretty active about saying that I think Fook 1 should have been swapped out a while back, but that's just my opinion because he's always a bit coin flippy. But you know what? We're going to get a chance to see whether or not that's going to be the case here in this one as we get now, Sejuani not likely to be shifted. Now we get the Nautilus Zaya, which is not the most common of combinations. I love Zeri Rakan. Zeri Rakan is an absolutely filthy combination if you can use it to some level of aggression, because you can slide forward on the Zeri over top of a wall, then you can you jump to it and then battle dance into the midst of the team from much longer range, similar to how it would work with Zaya if Zaya were positioning aggressively. It means that putting in this rookie TQ, who by the way he comes from the college circuit inside of VCS, which is wild to me because I do so much CLO stuff here. TQ coming out of the CLO branch is a bit of a representation. It's pretty nice to see that they're bringing in young players from a different pipeline than just pure VCSB.
I didn't even know the VCS had a college circuit, but either way, that's great news. I mean, especially to you, like being like the OG collegiate guy that we all know of from the North American scene. Either way, I also like Zeri Rakan. I mean, I have seen the second Buffalo play it with Shogun being like the hard carry. They deliberately even picked it despite being able to pick Zaya Rakan, which was the interesting part to me, because usually, I mean, you would want to have like the lovers duo being there, but they were actually fine giving up the Zaya. And I like the Nautilus into the Rakan, which much more preferred Leona, but Nautilus also kind of does the same job, right? And also against Zeri specifically, maybe even because they expected the Zeri to be locked in. I like that guaranteed lockdown with the death charge being there. Otherwise, you would have something like a Vi, but you can't really lock in Vi anymore. It's also a bit of a two-edged sword against the Zeri anyway, because you can kind of just get pulled in too far by the Spark Surge. Either way, they have Sejuani already, so they can't really pick Vi. And we've seen the Ari lock in for Jane, which I don't dislike. The thing is, Gragas was still available from what I see. I would have much more preferred that one. But either way, I want to see more from this player. They are like testing stuff out anyway with this composition as we see their players, but Ikigai and TQ being in. And yeah, please no Shinjao. Shinjao is only good with Ari, and you don't want him against Ari, I think.
It's not bad into the Wukong if they really wanted the one-to-one matchup, if Tamriel has belief in being able to beat Ikigai. But one thing that is definitive about Ikigai as a player is that he doesn't have this coin-flippy nature that a lot of junglers, especially rookie junglers, end up coming out with. Ikigai's a lot smarter of a jungler, which is why I've always been a fan of Ikigai. So I'm like, okay, he's not the most talented or mechanically gifted, but he certainly is the smartest jungler that we've seen at a very young level come in and play throughout the league, which is why I was always excited about it. That's why it was like, okay, Dante versus Ikigai. I'm like, okay, Dante will coin flip, and sometimes it works, but Ikigai will always be intelligent to help set up the team. I was hoping for something spicier here, if I'm being 100% with you right now, Quincy, because we do see it might be Sejuani tie. It's probably going to be Sejuani top lane with the blocking of the Lee Sin, which I know you were talking about. We don't see it as much anymore, but now Sunmer going to be locked in the Sejuani jail up against the side of Yashino. But we get a Renekton R5, which is not the most transcendent counter pick in the entire world, but something a little aggressive for Yashino, I suppose.
It's the Yoshino staple for sure. I mean, they hovered the Na earlier, and I mean, the VCS English podcast in general hates Na. I don't do to that extent, but I would hate it against Sejuani because Sejuani top lane was like this distinct counter pick against the mini Na to just one combo him with Ignite and the Glacial Prism and all the buzz coming out before it can really press a button. The mini Na would just die, so I definitely like this Renekton much more, even if it isn't an R5 Renekton. It is for Yoshino, he is like one of the more carry players on the team, and he can definitely do some stuff with this pick in general, and also neutralize the Sejuani top lane to some extent. And yeah, sorry for purposefully spreading misinformation on the internet. They actually still play solo lane Sejuani because some to some extent needs like a band-aid fix pick where he can hold lane against Yoshino before getting destroyed in the 1v1 too much, because we all know junglers don't really path top lane anymore, and his jungler can't really help him out too much.
Yeah, I was actually more excited to see a more devastating counter pick from Yoshino, because I'm like, okay, it seems like they're leaving Sunmer on a bit of an island up here. They're leaving him on the Sejuani. They're like, okay, you're probably losing, but I don't really care all that much. And then they're just like, oh, let's pick Renekton, which doesn't seem like the pick that you would grab into Sejuani if you wanted to just crush her. You easily could have done something like Urgot or Vayne or a range decision, especially Vayne on 13-6 with like the buffs and changes on top lane has just been absolutely filthy to deal with. That like, who's to say? I don't know. Either way, Yoshino had the opportunity to pick something, he decided to go for this Renekton. Maybe it's a pick that just keeps the team a little bit more together. You're worried about the two rookies that are being integrated the first time ever, because we haven't seen them for the entirety of the split, and especially when Flash is again competing to not drop into the relegation tournament. It is a bit strange. Again, it's a question of what the strategy is going to look like from the squad. Box Esports seem to have put together a solid enough composition. We'll see what they're able to kind of come out with as we're stepping into game number 1 here. Box Esports taking on Team Flash. Box Esports trying to ruin somebody's day by dragging them down into the relegation tournaments. See if the two of them will end up getting to link up against one another.
I mean, if they would do it, it would be absolutely rightfully so, because Team Flash is disrespecting them. I mean, bringing in 2 substitutions for it, I mean, it's definitely a statement. To me, just says that they think that it's just a free win anyway, we just grab it even with the substitutions, and might just as well test stuff before, I mean, the non-relegation comes out. I mean, you can't just expect, I mean, maybe it's also like the approach, even if we lose, Team Secret will lose to Cerberus and Team Wales anyway, but that would be ridiculously naive, to say the least. So I expect Team Flash to still play well with the substitutions, otherwise it wouldn't make sense for them. And if not, for Box to really punish this. I mean, they have a great composition, as you just know said. Also like Silas into Ari, basically, because you lose the first 3 levels, but then you absolutely outscale in the side lane. And in general, this R5 Renekton pick, I don't hate it, but I don't like it very much either.
Now, what might be of interest is that, especially when it comes to the jungle and the support roles, when you want to run a substitute, you actually see 2 people come in at the same time, because the jungle and the support are so kind of connected in a lot of ways when it comes to map communication, map movements, things like that. That if Ikigai and TQ have been scrimming together and playing a lot more together than what the other 2 have, it's possible that they wanted to try out TQ or Ikigai before the split was over, and they said, okay, let's just put both in, because obviously, we don't want to break apart the synergy that either of our 2, jungle support kind of combinations would have, and especially on Team Flash, where you've got both coaching and Yoshino to be able to have that experience, to be able to make that decision. It actually would make a lot of sense for them to try something like this. So the other big thing is, junglers, we already seen Ikigai. I've already said that I like Ikigai. But, new supports oftentimes get their tails whipped inside of their first couple of games. So I'm really interested in seeing what TQ's got to bring to the table. As immediate flash from Jane, going to get stunned up. Q's going to hit from Tomrio. And now Flash is not going to be available, as Jane's going to go down for first blood. Well played by No-Go.
And you said it, immediate flash from Jane. It was way too early. I mean, why is he even in a position to get gang at the 3-minute mark? It's like such an obvious gank window, right? And just flashing so early, making it easy for Tommy or Nu to just follow it up. I mean, Nu has to burn his own flash, by the way. Anyway, first blood for them. Kill to the laner, which is definitely something that Bog is happy with. And I mean, I was saying that Jane wasn't that bad. This was that bad.
Yeah, that was pretty rough. Again, Jane's got these weird 50-50 moments of just like, I don't even know what else to say about it, other than that sometimes it feels like his brain gets shut off out of nowhere. Certain champions doesn't happen. Oh, 2v2 in the bottom lane, and they actually ended up winning it out. They won the health trail on the side of Box. But right there, during the replay, they ended up losing it. And honestly, to be 100% with you right now, Crincey, the number of times that we've seen the bot lane, TQ seems to always be playing in the right position, which bodes well. I'm not going to get too hype on him quite yet, because we have plenty of game left to go. But I've loved the way that TQ has played this 2v2 right now on the bottom side of the map. And now, saving Pudding from a disastrous kind of beginning to the game, killing off slows in the midst of everything. We get to see the full replay.
Yeah, the hook
Wow,
missing,
yeah.
and then just the hard engage is a strong part, but if that misses, you aren't really that strong anymore. And Zeri is surprisingly strong at this level 2, level 3 power spike, which is something that sounds weird, right? Because Zayat had lane dominant champion, but I mean, it's like the hard engage bot lane against the more DPS oriented one, and you just lose if you miss your hard engage window, and that's what Zodiac did right there. And we spoke about it, right? TQ always in the right position at the right time. I'm curious why you can say it, because you already saw 4 minutes of gameplay so far from him, but either way, props to you, I guess. And already a great start for the Zeri bot lane. That's the Zerkas already with the car.
Yeah, making sure the attack speed's going to come through. Eventually, you'll go Vamp Scepter, and then Zeri will be full build from that point on in the game. There were only a couple of interactions. The first one, the one that really stuck out to me was the level 1 from TQ, as he's going to get hooked in. He's just going to bail. The Q is going to get him out of dodge. Nothing too crazy. Again, there's been anything. That's why I'm not going to sit here, not going to hype up TQ too heavily. But between the level 1, where he was playing around the hook from Zodiac being ducked by Puddin and being able to put some additional damage into the Nautilus, and then that right there being able to kind of punish when slows go for an aggressive trade with the feathers. To me, it just it's TQ understanding what other people want to be doing, as opposed to TQ just kind of playing mindlessly, which is how a lot of very young supports end up playing. As Ikigai, ready to get something done on the bottom side of the map. Actually, Fane's being hooked is going to cut off Zodiac, who has to flash to make sure to get away from Ikigai, as another solid setup here. Again, Ikigai can't quite find the angle, as Zodiac and Slows are far enough back to walk away, but they do get a little bit of something.
You're right, TQ just plays so good, right? I also like just getting hooked right there. This seemed like an intentional bait for him, and also weaving in the Gleaming Quill between like the minions to hit slow, so you get like a little bit of poke damage in. Other supports maybe wouldn't have done that. Anyway, what we don't see, but just see in the scoreboard, Yoshino is destroying Sunma in this 1v1. Very much so.
Devastating, yes.
He's just 3 waves ahead already in 6 minutes.
And right there, between Puddin and TQ, again, some communication errors. Puddin ends up almost getting hooked by Zodiac. In fact, actually, all 3 of them are relatively low, and Tomrio has the first move. Nogo is going to have a move as well. And that means that Team Flash end up losing this dragon. It's a question of whether or not the bot lane should have stayed and made that push happen to make sure that Zodiac and Slows couldn't step up. I know that Ikigai was already pretty low and was going to have a difficult time against Tomrio anyway, but the fact that they got dragged up the river ended up buying the space for Tomrio and Nogo to just be like, oh, they're on Dragon, let's go fight Dragon. And Team Flash does pull off. I have to give them a bunch of credit for that, because it would have been way too easy for them to just lose the exchange trying to go for that Dragon. So at minimum, they do have a bit of care to what they're doing. It just does suck. That does feel like a mistake from their bot lane, where they should have just hard shoved that wave, kept those 2 in place. And if they had done so, I wonder if Ikigai just gets to walk away with Dragon.
Yeah, but you say, right? It's like an improvement from Team Flash that we saw like 2 years ago or something in the Winter Mickey Mouse split. Team Flash back then would have not accepted the loss and would just went for the fight and lose not only the Drake but also the fight 4-0 or something. They just now accept their loss, cut their losses, just lose 1 Drake. It's okay. Not the end of the world, not good either, but you can live with that, right? I mean, you see also on the other side of the map, Yoshino destroyed the enemy top laner. You overall still have a very good bot lane setup. I mean, Jane died once to gank, but still like manageable, I gotta say. So overall, I think it's fine for them to just drop this first wake. I mean, it is a cloud wake, just some movement speed, not like an early ocean something, which would be the next dragon that would be spawning. And maybe in 4 minutes the team is more ready for the play.
They might be. I'm actually watching as well, because Ikigai has stolen away multiple topside camps here from Tomrio, which is the punishment in exchange for the dragon that went down. Going to be able to grab away the wolf camp, and then Lee Sin's actually going to head into bot side, most likely, as long as Ikigai doesn't get spotted on that ward, who actually will be here readily available for this play. As Nogo jumps in with the Ahri ultimate, Tomrio is here, they're going to shove out the Wayne. Now, the issue afterwards is that Jay needs to stick around on the map, because you have to be ready for it. Oh, Tomrio with a solid kick. Nogo wants to go in with the Ahri ultimate. Ikigai's going to get away. Jane's going to get away with some extra mobility. That's going to be the 2 of them getting shoved out of the jungle, as now bot lane, we're back to having a bunch of play. Ultimate got popped by Slows to ensure that they weren't going to get aggressive against. You can see the health trade's very heavily in favor of Team Flash right here. It was a Ignite and heal burnt during the exchange, but...
Yeah, they burnt their own ultimates and summoner spells as well, but overall, like this, considering their HP buff, it's just so good for the Flash bot lane. And we have seen them 2v2 killing them already once, as we have seen this mid-jungle skirmish. I mean, it was also just like Flash and ultimates traded. Either way, it was Team Flash taking a little bit on L on that one, as they were forced out of their own territory. As we see Tomio, I think he just took the Scuttle Crab, or did he? No, he didn't.
Yeah, no, there was another thing up there. I think the Rift Herald is what it was. Hmm.
It actually was, yeah. The very big scuttle crab. That's what I meant.
Very big scuttle, yeah, very, very big scuttle crab. One that can throw its body at towers and not worry about it too heavily. So you could see TQ popping out and then popping back up at the top side of that tower with Jane having push, with Ikigai being on the bottom side. It leads to Slows and Zodiac needed to leave the tower, which does mean that, of course, if you want to be here, like Ikigai and Puddin could actually pick up plates that would match what Tamrio is going to grab. It's going to be a free plate for Pudding to start things off. That's really solid grab here. As nothing else is going to come about. And again, after the couple of camps, if it's a full clear from Ikigai, ends up really, really ahead of Tamrio in terms of farm. So that would mean that Tamrio has to force this Rift Herald on the bottom side to try to match any amount of gold that Ikigai would get from just full clearing in general. And you see Tamrio is just kind of beelining directly up mid lane. Or bot lane, my apologies.
Yeah,
all right.
beelining the bot lane. They are landing a hook at least, but it's just Ikigai's warrior trickster, so it will be fine at the end of the day. They're going very deep. And in general, the team Flashbot are not really pressured by anything right now. I mean, looking very good CS-wise. Got this one plating early on with Ikigai's pressure covering it to threaten a potential dive being there. And also being quicker on the cover, right? There is a lightning crash. Maybe there's a play to be made.
Yeah, there's a lot of health missing on the squad. Zaya's actually going to get jumped on and immediately died to Puddin. Team Flash! The communication, Ikigai sticking around on bottom lane to know that Tamrio can't just pop down the Rift Herald. Puddin and TQ having that massive health advantage, it means they just punish. Like, Slows had Flash, they just were not ready to respond to what TQ and Puddin were bringing to the table on the bottom side of the map here. And now Team Flash, again, it opens up so much more elsewhere. Eventually the full clear to come out from Ikigai, the extra plate that went down on the bottom side, the extra kill that goes over to Puddin. Their bottom lane, man. Slows and Zodiac are both relatively like rookie, very young players as well. I am loving what I'm seeing from Pudding in TQ here in this game, Princey.
Absolutely, and I hate to be a negative Nancy about it, but Slows should just be able to flash this play. But it was kind of coming. Your card was envisioned. You see the quickness being channeled, basically, and you should be able to react to something like Brent Entrance plus quickness combination. It's not that hard at the end of the day, but either way, props to Team Flash. They really play off this skirmish well yet again. And also a little bit of props I gotta admit to Summer, because while he is getting destroyed by Yoshi, the CS lead isn't getting any bigger anymore. It just keeps about this 25 CS minute mark. I would expect it to be much worse if I see it go down south so early. Either way, that is kind of stabilizing, but in general, right, not many skirmishes happening. It's 2-for-1 in the kill department for side of Team Flash, and Box not even looking too terrible within them, even getting this first wake as we have seen earlier. But it's like the thing, right? They just lose every lane slowly but surely. So if they aren't just stomping those skirmishes, they just slowly lose the game. That's the problem with them. They are already down 2k gold yet again.
Ooh, okay. Jane sitting down on top of Ikigai's the Q lands. Tamrio, I think, actually going to end up dumping this Rift Herald in the mid lane to try to set up No-Go just a little bit more. That's probably the right decision. Again, No-Go has been the most consistent contributor to this roster. Already has a kill in the game. Already has Rod of Ages done. So the further that you spike this ahead, the better it's going to be.
Again.
That's the quickness that gets dropped. That is the lightning crash that comes down as Puddin drops some damage. The ultimate does not spread damage far enough to be able to hit Zodiac, but the feathers do nothing. Now Tamrio heads to bottom lane after dropping the Rift Herald. No-Go's here too, but they're going to get pinched in the river, as that's a big call. No-Go has to flash because TQ cuts him off. Quincy, who is this guy?
It's TQ, and he's just the best support in the league or what. I don't know what to say. He just lands Grand Entrance after Grand Entrance, just keeps getting flashes or even kills. Just now, the bot in 2v2 forcing them out. Otherwise, with the Rift Herald together in the mid lane, it would have maybe been a play even for Box to just go for this Drake. I think establish the mid lane priority, but the bot lane from Team Flash is just too strong.
Yes, it is. It's funny. There's a snack here in the US called taquitos. Are you familiar with that? Hey, you might not be.
Which one's?
Fine. I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna hang out for a second. Hold on. That's a dragon. It's a kill traded back. Okay? It's a solid steal coming through from Tamrio, but it is gonna get a bit of gold back to the side of Team Flash in response. It's now bot lane also gonna get aggressive against taquitos. Are you familiar with taquitos?
I'm not. What is it?
Okay, it's a snack that it's just sort of like a chip snack that you have more than anything else. But the reason I'm using that is because you have like the suffix ito, which is small in some languages, and then you have taki, so it's taquito, so it's TQ is now taquito, at least in my mind, is Pudding getting aggressed against by Slows and Zodiac on the bottom side of the map. That is a feather pull that gets a massive amount of damage, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Team Flash suffering in a couple of positions. Their bottom lane ends up losing out. Not sure what prompted that little fight down there more than anything else. And then, of course, the dragon going down means, Box Esports has brawled their way back into this game in just a couple of minutes. Yeah, this is the bottom lane play. What happened? Puddin. ends up getting ulted and ends up getting hit with the feather pull there all at once.
Yeah.
Oh,
The problem was it's I pressed R. Yeah. And also they were like kind of off sync as well. Like TQ didn't really want to fight there. He was like kind of low mana, low HP, and was already like channeling the recall. And his partner in Puddin wasn't really ready for the play. It's Yoshinos and Dominus. He will die there, I think, but he will take some time to die. Yeah. Either way, he will eventually fall to Tomio. And gotta say, with Tomio getting this Drake stolen and this bot lane comeback play right now, this kill right now, suddenly they are even in gold. They got 2 Drakes, and Team Flash, they kind of dropped the ball. Can't really say anything else.
Yeah, the biggest thing is that, again, first tower of the game probably ends up breaking the actual advantage that either of these two teams is going to have. And with Box having 2 dragons, you're feeling good about walking into the later stage of the game. I like Flash's comp a little bit better. Man, Slows is doing it to right now. Is underneath the tower turret. Now you have Ikigai who's going to jump in. Slows is going to die to the Wukong. And Zodiac is stuck under the tower, but there's no minions to be able to continue the dive. They're not going to stick around for Nogo to show up. They're not going to stick around for Tomrio to stick. Actually, they are going to stick around here, as they probably want the tower damage more than anything else. Zodiac is stuck, and there's nothing for Zodiac to be able to do. He's just going to try to dance around as best as possible, as that's going to be the engage, as Ikigai finds 2 here. And they should be able to find the first tower here on the bottom side of the map, which is a bit for Team Flash. Again, they finally find some amount of aggression here after getting absolutely bullied for the last 5 minutes or so. This was put in... Again, man! He invaded.
It actually, glass half full. It looked pretty sick from Slows. We'll go for like the Flash Blade caller play, and he was kind of getting caught off guard by that one. Actually, I mean, he also had a reactive Flash possible, but he needs to be very, very quick on his fingers to pull that one off. So I don't really want to fault Puddin much for that one, as I want to credit Slows. And in general, Team Flash, the macro decision in general, I kind of liked. The micro just wasn't quite there, as they definitely got both kills on the bot lane, got the first turret. That's still a W for them in the bigger picture, but could have been a bit better with Puddin surviving there. And with him actually dying first, he's the AD carry, the main damage threat in those skirmishes. I was actually like kind of expecting disaster, but just gotta say, Ikigai chasing down Slows behind the turrets was what kind of salvaged the play to some extent, and also Jane continuing to land these of deceptions to prevent Zodiac from recalling there. Made it possible to still play the dive. So at the end of the day, Team Flash still coming out ahead, and I just gotta say, Tomio suiciding for this Drake steal overall seems very worth right now. I mean, just that alone puts them on 1 point before Soul Point, and I mean, gold is like not that even, but it's 1k gold at 70 minutes. It seems fine for Box.
Yeah, I think Box is okay playing this out. I do have worries about, like, again, later on in the game, Puddin is still going to be an absolute monster because you do have the Zeri that's going to be scaling. Wukong has picked up a ton of kills here at the beginning of the game. We've seen Wukong's kind of run things in the right circumstance. And Jane has matched the gold from the early advantage that got poured into No-Go because you had, like, both the Rift Herald get dropped in mid lane. You had a bunch of other stuff that happened with the First Blood and everything else for No-Go as well. So despite No-Go having some little injections of gold here and there, it feels like Jane is neutralized to some extent, so you do have a bit of worry in that. Also, Sunmer is going for this weird AP Sejuani build that we've seen a handful of times. I know the Rod of Ages makes some sense. I'm still confused the circumstances in which you build this as opposed to going for full tank, as Jane is going to brawl a little bit with Tomrio, has to pop the ultimate to get away.
I mean, otherwise I would just have Silence as solo AP threat. I mean, he does sufficient damage, don't get me wrong, but having more is better, and it's just such a good scaling item in general, especially on those patches recently where it hasn't been nerfed. And I think Double Rod of Ages in general is just such a scary amount of scaling, potentially kicking in within like 6 minutes for Box, and definitely Team Flash has to respect that to some extent. They, of course, on their own right, they have a Zeri, insane scaling. Also, Wukong against an AD jungler like this, definitely being a bit better in that regard, as the next response in 10 seconds. But there might just be a little bit of a scrap off from Box Esports, as this was Ikigai getting hooked, and Ikigai is not the one you want to hook.
No, it's not. Both teams kind of prepping right here, as TQ actually tried to battle dance away from that hook. It ended up not doing any damage to him, but it doesn't matter, as both teams are here ready and raring for a team fight. Getting our first opportunity to see what Ikigai and TQ are going to be able to do in a 5-on-5, as Tomrio is going to pop that Rift Herald in the mid lane. It will just destroy the tower. There's not much to be done about that. So I'm thinking that charge might actually end up leading to the biggest kind of shift in this game. This could be a fight. That's going to be Box Esports working their way into the jungle. No-Go heading back up into mid lane, as that's going to be Ahri getting CC'd to absolute death. Jane has to ult the other side of the fight, but the Gale Force is going to be able to bring him down. Now Yoshino, the frontliner, down TQ trying to frontline as well. Trying to buy some space for Puddin here. Stay and Ikigai are the ones that are remaining in this fight. Looking for the dragon is Box Esports to put themselves on Soul Point. They have to be super careful with the way that this is going to be played. No-Go grabs Rakan ultimate. See whether or not that's going to be able to accomplish just about anything. Puddin still has not used the crash down. A lot of ultimates still remaining here. As Nogo's going to try to find a bit of an angle. Puddin is going to get jumped on immediately, and that's your main damage dealer that is now gone. Now Yashino at the front end of the fight also going to get jumped on as Ikigai and TQ, your two youngsters, the only ones remaining as Team Flash falter around this dragon and give up number 3 to Box Esports, who out of nowhere have taken a gold advantage in this game, Quincy.
And not just the gold advantage, but also soul point for them. It's a chem soul, arguably maybe the worst soul in the game, but I just gotta say, every soul is a win con on its own. You definitely have to respect it, especially with those juicer champions like the Silas, right? I mean, especially one of Age's Silas, definitely. You have to one-shot him, otherwise he will just heal back up again. And here we see Nugu in the flank. The hijack quickness from Bakan, such a good Silas still to have just a high AP CC intensive ultimate to really steal. Yes. And they already blocked Jay before, and so it was really a bad fight to take from Team Flash anyway. And this just now leads to a lot of map control and game control for Box Esports. They take another turret. They just also took the mid lane tier 1 turret before this Drake fight, which is like the most important turret considering the overall map control. So they would now definitely fire on all cylinders, right? I mean, it was some getting a little bit destroyed against the Vellectin, but I mean, it's Sinjwali top lane against Vellectin. There won't just be that much of a difference unless it's like 50 CS or more, and it ended up being like less than 30 overall, which is fine for them in the bigger picture, and they are scaling brilliantly compared to Team Flash in general as well. Not that Team Flash is scaling poorly or anything, but they definitely have it in their own hands now to close out this game. They have a small goal lead, they have 3 Drakes up on their sleeves, and so far every neutral objective went their way, right? They also got both Heralds. Team Flash definitely dropping the ball in that regard.
They did. Now down 1,000 gold, which is not an insurmountable gold lead, but another thing that's been pressing is that Puddin's positioning has been punished a couple of times by multiple members on the side of Box Esports. Got to crisp up a little bit as this game goes on. Otherwise, again, you keep getting assassinated by Tamrio and Nogo and anybody else who kind of gets into the backline, and Puddin is going to be gone. It's going to be your main damage dealer that's going to be missing from these fights, which is a huge loss. Zodiac tries to find a pull, not going to be able to grab one up. Baron buff side of the map is actually looking great here so far for the side of Box Esports. They had a good amount of setup. Jane and Nogo are just throwing damage back and forth at one another. But sports here for Ikigai as Nogo is going to grab the Ahri ultimate. I love the Ahri ultimate because you can cancel the chain. You can make it look really cool. Ikigai pops the Cyclone, trying to push back Nogo. So Nogo is just going to be able to rock out. It's just coverage for Jane more than anything else.
It's actually big. Wait, look at did you see how much damage he took?
TQ, wow, okay, ultimate has to be popped, and that's nothing, as Tamrio is going to be able to kill TQ as well, bottom side of the map. Yashino and Sunmer getting into it just a little bit, as Jane now still under some real duress at the moment.
And deals no damage. I mean, have you seen Jane versus Nugo? It was just Nugo chucking half his HP while only losing like a quarter of his own, and then also applying pressure for Ikigai to just force the Cyclone ultimate out. Jane tried to go for the charm, then Nugo just sidestepping it with his just normal dash ability. And for the side of Box, it's just win after win, as long as Nugo isn't really getting thrown out, and you can't really kill the Silas anymore. It's one of Age's Silas, which is very close to being fully scaled by now. They also have this one chem tech break, which makes it even easier for him to play it out. And he just forces so much pressure on his own that Team Flash definitely needs to pull 2 or 3 people just to Nugo alone. And also on the bot that we just saw, Yoshino against Sunmer is not as one-sided as it used to be. So he can just at least stabilize him, while Box on the other side of the map can just straight up win.
They can. It seems like Team Flash really wants to play for a big team fight, but they just have not been able to find their angle. They haven't been able to put Pudding with the rest of the team. Haven't been able to put everybody together in one place. As there's the look, going to try to find something. That's Zodiac who's going to be disrupted. Is going to end up almost going down, but the blast code gets him out. So those also took a remarkable amount of damage right there, as Jane was able to do some sort of assassin stuff. Now the look would be Baron, but unfortunately it doesn't look like they have the confidence to go jumping at the Baron right here. Maybe just the mid tower more than anything else, but they still have to worry about Nogo. There's Tamrio here as well. Cyclone's now available here for Ikigai, who's going to get jumped on by Tamrio. Tamrio will just be able to walk out of that situation. It looks like bottom lane there was a large scrap between the Renekton and the Sejuani, which ended up going Sejuani's way. As Team Flash, just again, it feels like they had an opportunity maybe to go looking for the Baron because of the health that was missing. They're going to try to run at Nogo, but that's going to mean absolutely nothing. Is now they're going to turn back. Zodiac is going to be able to find something. TQ's ultimate, they're going to be able to find one. Summer's going to TP into the remainder of the fight. Now ultimate from Nogo is going to be able to jump into the backline, going to get stunned up by Yashino, who showed up to the fight just in time, putting on the bottom side. He's going to be putting in damage, but Slow's going to be able to Gale Force in to try to find more, as Pudding is going to eventually go down. Now they have no damage dealers. Jane needs to go to get shoved out of the fight. Yashino's trying to find something in a bit of reprieve. Ikigai also has the ability to put out damage inside of his fight, almost taps Slows, and Slows is going to go down to Jane's ultimate. As now it was relatively contested there through the middle of the fight, but finally Team Flash end up with 3 big kills and should be able to clean up a tower pretty easily. Big problem is 20
Maybe
seconds
more.
until Dragon.
Tomio can't really recall yet. I mean, it's 15 seconds now, and he's still very low HP, and he doesn't get to recall in the situation. And Team Flash, I really want to see how they really turned this fight around, because it was looking very, very doomed for them. As Lowe's was the one who later on was killing on Pudding, but here we see how it started off. Ikigai killing Zodiac, and then the fight kind of blows up. It is still the quickness stolen by Nugo, and he gets blown apart by, I think it is, him being forced to stopwatch against Jane. Then here we see Slows getting the flash forward onto Pudding to just absolutely kill him with the Feather Storm combination, not even landing, but still just the auto attacks being enough for it. As we see Nugo finally falling to Yoshino, and then at the back end of the fight, Sanma is pretty fat compared to Yoshino, but he doesn't really fight backline access, so at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter, as Yoshino, together with Jaden, can just deal enough damage for this fight, together with Ikigai, and this means Camsoul not taking the box. They take one Drake to the side of Team Flash, but they are now on the Desperation Baron, maybe. They are still like in control of the game. They don't need to force this too hard.
Yeah, I'm not in love with the Baron call here. I think you're okay with losing a single dragon so that the game can continue, but instead of team fight, on the front line, Zodiac gets blown up in exchange for Ikigai. A lot of the health bar of Ikigai and Yoshino has been pulled off. Puddin can still put out some damage as well. So the Lightning Crash has already been burnt. There are 4 members of Box with full health bars. I think you are perfectly fine in this situation. That's Jane finding a solid charm on a no-go. As they're still looking for entrance here. They're still looking for a lot. Ultimate from TQ is available. They could go jumping in if they wanted to. And I think that is going to prompt Box Esports on the retreat. Well played, TF. Able to grab both the Dragon and able to drag, and push them off the Baron buff and take a gold lead back in this game, Princey. We're on a teeter-totter right now.
Absolutely, I mean, I just took another kill, which means, of course, the Baron being stopped by the side of Box Esports. I mean, Box just kind of botched this last team fight, which shouldn't really have happened, especially with Sanma kind of destroying Yoshino on the sideline before. He was level 16 against level 14 on the Reluctant, so it was definitely looking good for them over there, despite the early game not really looking too much Sanma favored. He's now on the fully stacked Word of Ages, he's on the Frozen Heart as well, but Flash just team fights better than them. I just can't really say it in any other way. Ikigai also playing this very smartly, dropping low on the Wukong, but he's Divine Thunder by Wukong. He will heal back up if he just doesn't die, similarly to what Silas would do in these fights. And I mean, Puddin and TQ, they have surprisingly good synergy within these fights, which is something that's remarkable to me, as they aren't really playing many officials together at least. I mean, this is the first one, I think, maybe ever. And Team Flash at least showing like some resilience, that even from behind that they can at least still hold on in these team fights and just still out team fight Box, who had a very strong early to mid game spike in this situation, also playing it very relatively well, but now also in the last minutes just not being as good as Team Flash has been.
The biggest thing is that if it weren't for Slows actually being like remarkably good in this game, with the Xayah being able to dive constantly to punish Pudding with feathers and feather pulls, actually I'm going to save this, as they're going to go looking for Slows as best as possible. They pop the Shurelias, they go in as fast as possible. Ultimate from Ikigai hasn't been burnt. Ultimate hasn't been burnt by anybody but TQ, but that's a lot of health off of Team Flash that is just missing, that they are not going to get back anytime soon. For basically half the health bar of Zodiac, which is not good. That should prompt Box Esports to walk up mid lane, probably grab mid tower. I don't think they can run directly to Baron, but they definitely could run towards that. Some healing has come through from the rest of the team. Still really worried. It feels like this is assassination range for Jane and for TQ by players like Nogo, even Tomrio, Slows with the proper feather pull. But they're not going to aggress. They're not going to look for anything more. They didn't get the mid tower. They didn't end up pushing up. They didn't end up going for the Baron. So Box Esports willing to sit on their hands a little bit here to make sure that they're going to take a more safe play.
And they aren't really decisive, but I think that's actually a fine call, because they only just got a little bit of a chunk onto Jane and also onto TQ. And I think they can at least heal that up quite a little bit if they are just in the vicinity of the play. And if you're not tanking up the Baron, you can easily just fall prey to the RE. You said yourself that Jane having this very hard word, assassination potential, as he is, of course, on the troll build, as Namero would say, with Everfrost going into Horizon focus. But either way, it's still just enough damage to just blow someone up who's close to the Baron. And now Jane on this move on this tier 1 turret. And Ikigai is not on the wrong spot, that's a clone actually, but why do you flag for this project? This is overforced. I think Box Esports know that they kind of have the game within their hands, but they are kind of struggling to really deal with their own jitters.
Yeah, I think they're worried because the team fights have not been going perfectly. That is not to say that I think that they've been going imperfectly. I think it's just Box Esports having a read that says, okay, we haven't been able to slow them down, and so we're struggling to figure out what needs to happen. And because of that, they're looking for these forcing kind of maneuvers inside of fights when they don't need to be this desperate. They don't need to be this insane. Just need to back off and continue playing the way that they have been. Because right now, to me, it feels like they're in a really good position. They've got Sunmer in a massive position. Sunmer has done such a good job of coming back in this game on the Sejuani, starting to build in a tank alongside the Rod of Ages. Means you're gonna have good damage, but you're also gonna be really tanky on the front end of fights. Probably quite a bit stronger than you have been in most of this game. Ikigai has done this before Zodiac like 100 times. I would have popped the Cyclone, but that's about all you can do, and there's nothing else for you to accomplish. That's going to be a huge pick coming out here for Bach Esports. Like Zodiac was just able to find the ultimate at exactly the right time, and there's no response from the rest of Team Flash. Now they have to win the fight around this Baron or just lose the objective. Here we go.
Yeah, definitely need to look for champions. Yeah, Jane does need to find a miracle. Maybe like Spirit Rush Charm and just somehow kill slows or just find an angle here. Because you don't have a smite, you definitely have a hard time to really fight this, but Team Flash still wants to go for it.
And that's a 1-for-1 on the front end of the fight. Now Putin wants to be able to use that lightning crash. Going to find 2 as into the pit is everybody else. They're just kind of stuck in place right now. Slow's going to be able to drop the feathers, which should be plenty of damage. You can see it does. Oh my goodness. Right there. Putin now wants the fight onto Nogo, who goes into Zonia's. Is right now, is it? Oh, Putin is going to be nearly brought down. Okay, it ends up being a 4-for-4 over the course of the entire fight. Tamria the only one remaining, but Nogo clutching the back end of that fight, making it look so easy as Box Esports avoids complete disaster. I thought after the beginning of this fight, Crincy, that they were dead to rights, that this was going to be it. They were stuck in the pit. The combination of Slow's Feather Pull and Nogo clutching the end of this fight was so good.
Yeah, as we here see the replay, but it was so kind of troll from Team Flash, as all we silver players know, like, they don't focus the tank, but they actually focus the tank, got down Summer quickly, and if he as a fronter dies pretty quickly, you can easily get the backline access, and Slows with his Featherstorm definitely doing a lot of work, and Nugu almost dead, but still strong enough on the Silas to just go for the Kingslayer, just deal a lot of damage while healing himself up, and this Chem Deck Drake, because it is a potential soul, is of course heavily contested. Team Flash, however, should have the main advantage from earlier on, but it's not really looking too decisive. As Box Esports, I think they can contest this, but they are just now going for it. Another TP coming in, and it will reset all the way to the full. Remember, Tomio still has Baron, so combat stats-wise, he should have a tiny bit of an advantage. Not that it means much, but maybe for Wrestling Strike plus Smite combo, it could just be the difference maker.
Just might be Box Esports stepping into the north side of the river here, waiting to hang out.
Oh, it's flipped.
Have a bit of everything else. That's going to be a big soul take that comes down. Now it's the fight afterwards. Putin is going to be able to lightning crash and put so much damage down as Sunmer and Zodiac are just going to be absolutely devastated on the front end of this fight. See if Sunmer is going to be able to battle. It looks like they're going to be able to. There's not much else, so it ends up just being the 1 kill going to the side of Team Flash. Not worth it for the soul, as that's a lot of stats that are just pumped drastically here in Box Esports. It is only a 1k gold advantage. The team fights seem to be going okay. This might just be an Elder flip angle from Team Flash if you're being 100% honest here.
It actually might be, because it's just not enough to only get 1 kill against a Camso, but I mean, Baron still being on Tommy doesn't really mean much in the bigger scheme of things, but it actually might just be the difference maker that actually got him the Smite secure here, with it, of course, in general, just being hard to secure a smite against Lee Sin, and definitely an oversight by Team Flash to really just go for the flip here, because it's not even a flip in your favor. And now Box getting this Chemtech Soul. Good luck killing that Sejuani, killing that Silence anymore, because they definitely love that Soul very much. Especially on this kind of trolley looking item, but for the Rod of Ages, Sejuani might just be more ideal in this situation, as she is kind of a secondary carry right now. Definitely dealing like a few hundred AP and dealing like some more damage than a usual Sejuani really would do. And now it's just, you have to focus anyone on Box Esports side. I mean, you can't just only focus Slows and then just be happy with the team fight. Otherwise, in the late game team fight, you would just assume if you kill the enemy AD carry quickly, you just win. Against Silence and Sejuani and Lee Sin with Chem Soul, it's not as easy anymore.
No, it isn't. I'm terrified to think about what's going to happen when a Kingslayer hits with the Chem Soul now from Nogo when he's below 50% health, because he's increased damage, increased healing. He's going to go from like basically right above zero to like full health. Yeah, overhealed with shield and everything else coming through, and somebody's health bar is just going to get eviscerated. As Nogo's been playing this one immaculately, so has Tomrio. Honestly, this mid jungle has been amazing. Slows has had really big moments. Slows has had these really big feather pulls that I think have made a massive difference maker for Box Esports over the course of the game. But when it comes to consistency, you cannot beat what Nogo has been able to do in fights and what Tomrio have been able to do in fights. As in fairness, they are the two most experienced members. As recently as I think a couple splits ago, Fook One has been starting for has had starting roles on teams, has had consistent jungling roles on teams, and Nogo very similarly has had entire splits to be able to practice. So it's not shocking to see these two really stand out and about. It's putting in the face of Tomrio. TQ has to save him with that ultimate. Putin has to slide over top of the wall as they're just distracting mid lane a little bit. They're buying time here for the top side push. Sunmer's not able to stop this. This is going to be an inhibitor for Team Flash. Honestly, if they had lost their bot lane, I think it would have been an L. But the double ultimate to be able to save, actually it wasn't. It was the one ultimate from TQ that saved them in that situation. That is a massive win for Flash.
They're just smarter than us. They just go for these Morgan Mirror plays, and it makes sense, right? I mean, in the fair 5v5, they wouldn't have a chance against Box Esports, against the Camsoul, Silas especially. I mean, you were talking about how he potentially would get a huge heal from the Kingslayer. I mean, you have seen like these clips of like Atox with Gordwinker just being in the 1v5 situation and just healing all back to full. I think that's what it really would look like, and I mean, Team Flash knows that, right? They just go for these Morgan Mirror plays, just put the bot lane in mid lane to just stop potential weak holes, and just put the Freeman squad on the top side to just grab a turret there for free, and it actually works out because Box Esports isn't really that decisive, and Team Flash likely in the know of that, so they just go for as much as possible as they can, just grabbing a bit of standing gold, maybe for some power spikes around this next potential Elder Flip or Baron Flip or whatever it will be, as the Baron will spawn earlier, just be 40 seconds for it, but the Elder Flip might just be their way to really win this game, as Elder is just something, it's the same strength even if you had Soul before, or if you have like a single Drake as they have, or even zero Drake, so might just be their biggest shot, and the Elder is surprisingly squishy compared to something like a Baron. You can easily just at least contest this once, even from behind, and it's just not just a game-ending objective, but also just a potential comeback objective. That's why it is in the game, and this might just be what Team Flash is going for.
Both teams kind of clustering together here around the Baron buff as it begins to spawn. 5 seconds away from that one coming through. Ikigai's going to start things off directly onto the back line. It slows. Oh no, that's Nogo. Who's going to go down? With a 60-second death timer, Krinsky. They're not going to have the biggest tool that they've been able to use for the entirety of the game after a very decisive play coming out from Ikigai and from the rest of the team. All 5 ultimates were burnt for that. But I think they are okay with that as Team Flash gets interior pressure for both the Baron and for that soul point. Potentially or that Elder Dragon. So on the front line, there's Zodiac, who just dies immediately. Ikigai's able to dance out of it. That's 2 members now down for this squad. As now they're looking for more, potentially Yoshino on the front line, try to find something. TF wants to fight afterwards. They're going to be able to dance out. Yoshino's going to bring down Tomrio. Kick back, and everybody is Pudding. As Tomrio's able to find a hero play now. Kiku goes down on the back line. Slow's going to be able to find a lot more damage on a Pudding who's in the front as a result of Tomrio. And Tomrio saves the fight. He gets everything. He puts Pudding out of position. He gets everyone thrown about. And out of nowhere, Box Esports just wins the game off the back of a hero play from their most experienced member.
Yeah, absolutely. Just an insane kick to get put in down into the stage and just absolutely just falling prey to whatever hell Box Esports can bring to the table in this situation. It was a 3 versus 5, but they still go for the play. They knew with the Camsoul they will probably stay alive, not just to win the game, but here they take the inhib, and it's actually Ikigai putting away the minions, just being a distraction over there. But he will die, this will probably either the game or the Baron or the Elder. They just go for the game.
Yeah, they're probably going to be able to finish it too. Only a few seconds on TQ, who's going to have ultimate. Going to get stunned up by Sunmer. Now you have to distract everybody here for a couple of seconds. Yoshino is back out on the map. I don't know that it's going to be enough. You have to find the damage, basically, as that's going to be a jump in onto Slow, see if they can actually get the assassination. It's just not going to happen. As Box Esports, it was hotly contested back and forth over and over again over the course of this game. But Box Esports takes a big win. And honestly, if I'm being real with you right now, Quincy, that had nothing to do with Ikigai and TQ. I thought both of them played fine game. There were a couple of mistakes here and there.
I was about to say.
That was Box Esports just playing like just way better than we've seen most of the split. Again, impressing us out of nowhere.
Absolutely. I mean, it really wasn't the subs. I mean, Ikiga played fine. TQ played more than fine. You can't really put any blame onto them whatsoever. You could actually argue to put blame on somebody else there. Maybe Jane a little bit underperforming this game. And Yoshino kind of being very quiet after this super strong early game from him. Either way, we see the gold graph kind of looking like a sinus wave. And Box Esports at every Drake, like they had the better control, right? Also, look at little objectives. It's just a single Drake being given to Team Flash with this one team, but where it was Box dropping the ball a little bit. Other than that, also Herald's outdriven in the statistic, and they are also Box favored both times. And just gotta say, from start to finish for them, the laning phase not looking as crisp, but in general, they look like a solid team this time. And Team Flash can't really fault the subs here, just actually bad game one by them to their standards at least. And I don't know what their reaction will be to this one.
Yeah, by
Because
the end
if you
of the
know
game,
sub in those two subs, it will be undeserved.
it would be 100%. Yeah, if they take those two out, I would actually be a little bit mad. That game, despite having a 20 CS lead early on, Yasuno ended up down a level and down about 10 CS. The same thing happened to Jane. I will put some of the onus onto Ikigai. Ikigai got kind of run in the jungle, but Tamrio was just playing an amazing game. So whether or not that was Tamrio just having an amazing game or whether it was Ikigai getting run around the map, to me, it doesn't matter because, again, whether or not Ikigai was playing at a top level or a fine level doesn't matter when Tamrio's playing the way that he did because that last fight was all Tamrio. Like, that kick was immaculate to be able to set up the rest of the team. Yeah, I don't know. Flash, to me, they didn't punish well enough in draft. They didn't punish it well enough in game. Like, their early advantages were not able to be capitalized on, and then they just kind of fell off in a lot of circumstances to these big ultimates coming through from the side of Box Esports, who they're not even fighting for a reason, Princey. They're just fighting to humiliate these teams at the bottom of the standings and try to drag them down to their level. So Box Esports sitting in the basement still throwing haymakers at these other squads.
I mean, they didn't even pick set. They were still throwing haymakers. Very impressive in that regard. Either way, I'm not quite sure what I really want to say about Team Flash this time. I mean, I kind of, retrospectively, I mean, hindsight always 2020, I didn't like the Ari for Jane because it just got counterpicked and he didn't really win lane with it. I think Yoshino's reaction is fine, but if you don't really close out the game, it will also just look very dumb in the late game, and that's what happened right there. So for game 2, maybe just put Jane back to Gragas or something, or maybe just pick some more hard carry for the late game for Yoshino. This might be the angle here, as you will probably win lane, at least not lose lane to Box Esports anyway. So let's wait and see what their adaptation will be to game 2. I'm out of ideas. I mean, I just now mentioned 2 of those, and that's all I have for now.
Doesn't matter. We'll be back with game number 2 here between Box Esports and Flash. Flash still fighting for their lives, and they are down a game in the series. See if they can come back after just a few minutes here.
What are you willing to lose? You cover your wounds, but underneath them a million voices in your head that whisper, stop now. Another twist of the knife, a turn of the screws. It's all in your mind and it's fighting you on yourself. The storm is coming. Wow, kid, what you gonna do now? It's your reflection looking back to pull you down. So are you gonna die today or make it out alive? You gotta conquer the monster in your head and then you'll fly, fly, Phoenix fly. It's time for a new empire. Go bury your demons, then tear down the ceiling, Phoenix fly. And now you're playing with matches, come out of the ashes underneath you. A million voices in the crowd, they're screaming, stop now. Well, let them swallow the pride, you're turning the tide to true believers. Got them in the palm of your hand, you're playing God now. What you gonna do now? It's your reflection looking back to pull you down. So are you gonna die today or make it out alive? You gotta conquer the monster in your head and then you'll fly, fly, Phoenix fly. It's time for a new empire. Go bury your demons, then tear down
Hear the call for all the chosen ones, far away but all like one. Come together, we've just begun. Chant till Valhalla comes, chanting till Valhalla comes.
everybody to the VCS English, where we're stepping into our second game of the day here as Team Flash. They pulled out some subs. I don't think it was a problem. We'll see whether they stick with them because obviously they don't want to end up in the basement. They don't want to lose to the team that currently sits at 1-11. Perhaps a small amount of disrespect being paid to our wonderful Box Esports, Quincy.
Absolutely, and it was kind of a scary game, right? Because the subs weren't the problem, and for Team Flash, they definitely need to find a new solution right now because just putting the subs out isn't one, and they definitely need to fix some issues. Whether on the Rift or within the draft, we are yet to be seen. Actually, I think a bit of both would be like the ideal one, as they were kind of having a good early game, winning the lanes, and then just not snowballing when they were absolutely in position to do so, and maybe Avi's Jane isn't quite it. Maybe Yoshino on the Renekton kind of just doesn't do enough for the late game, if it ever happens to be one, where they definitely shouldn't have been one. And let's wait and see what their answers will be for the second game, because they definitely need a new one, because before you potentially go into relegation, you don't want to lose to the last place team for sure.
No, you don't. Yeah, it's not a vote of confidence that you would have in your squad. And it's also very strange because, again, walking into this game, the fact that they took 2 subs in, to me, is not indicative of them going, oh, yeah, we think we're so much better than Box Esports that we're just going to throw 2 random players in. It should be that they thought that it was going to improve their play to some extent, which, again, I don't think it was necessarily a downgrade. In fact, I wonder what this team would have looked like if they had been starting with Ikigai and TQ in all split, because not to say that Sora and Fukwon have been bad, just that it felt like there was a lot of potential there that ended up going basically unexplored, especially given that Box Esports is rocking Zodiac, who is somebody who's had some experience, and Zodiac was absolutely clowned by TQ in that game, in my opinion. I think you shared that opinion as well. As he was just getting devastated in the support to support 1-1. I'm most upset about the Renekton pick. I still think that was not that Renekton's a bad champion, just that the punishment was not there onto Sunmer's Sejuani in the top lane. So we'll see whether or not they decide to fix that in the draft, what they decide to go for, whether or not they decide to pull their substitutes, whatever that might be, as we walk into game number 2 here soon enough.
I mean, Yoshino has played a decent amount of Fiora this split. I mean, he played actually most of his games on Fiora. I mean, it's played 5 times. Lost 3 times or so, but Flash in general loses many games, so it doesn't really mean much. And that's what I want to see. Like, it's just a hover, and casters shouldn't get baited by hovers, but I just deliberately choose to get baited by this hover. It is a Gragas, it's also locked in, and this is not just also a flex pick for potentially Fukwon, Yoshino, and Jane, but I really just like it on Jane so much that I think that's a step into the right direction.
Yeah, I am a little upset that it is going to be Fukwon and Sora stepping back in because I wanted to see more from Ikigai and from TQ especially. I was contemplating, like, okay, even if they bring Fukwon back in for experience, I want to see TQ still in, because TQ played an immaculate game. But ends up not being the case. As we're back to slows going on to Xayah, and we get Rakan now for Zodiac, as they were bullied on that pick just a little bit now. Now we see, it's Zeri. I wonder if Lulu, I was going to say Lulu could come out just as a solid amount of poke, and the W coming down to Rakan is a little bit difficult to kind of deal with. Now Wukong is available if Tamriel wants Wukong. Lee Sin is available if he wants Lee Sin. Anything is cup runneth over with decisions here.
Yeah, maybe 1 step to the right direction, 2 steps behind, as they subbed out their substitutes who have been putting on a stellar performance. Either way, we see the Xavi Lulu bot lane, an all-time classic, basically, as it's a very much scaling bot lane. Not as good as the Diavocanos in the early game, of course, but we have seen like the first game, right? Laning phase wasn't the problem for Team Flash at all. It was translating it to the later stage of the game, and maybe Xavi Lulu looking better for them as Xavi Rakan would, but TQ played a more than fine game on Rakan, so can't really put it onto that one. But maybe just the Enchanter bot lane, something that Sora is definitely more comfortable with, as there will be a Wukong lock-in for the side of Box Esports. So Tomio taking the champion that Ikigai played in the first game, and maybe wanting to show off even more, as Ikigai also played fine, but maybe Tomio is like, I just now hard carried the game with 1 late game Lee Sin kick. I can do it on other picks as well.
Yeah, like I said, Tamriel was the better of the 2 junglers. That is not to say that Ikigai was a bad jungler in that game by any standard, but I get the reason why that they would want to take him out and put back in Fukwon, as Fukwon's got the experience that I think would be helpful for Flash to have somebody a little bit more veteran in this matchup, because again, Tamriel, one of the higher level competitors, one of the higher level contenders here on this Box Esports roster. So I wonder what bans are going to look like here. Yoshino still doesn't necessarily get Gragas. Am I frozen right now?
Yeah, you are frozen right now, but so am I. So is Spoot, so is everyone, I think. And maybe there's just nothing we can do about it. Either way, it's also frozen on the VCS English podcast stream, so maybe there's just nothing we can do about it. As
Perhaps.
we maybe get a
Okay.
new thingy.
Okay.
Either way, we are back.
Nice.
I-
And we
this is
get
a bad
Scion and Akali bans, and then we get Talia looked at here for no-go. Actually locked in for no-go.
It's locked in, and it's
Nice.
one of those picks of all time, basically. I mean, there's some AP damage within the competition. Sunman not really the one to really bring in high AP numbers. I mean, the situation just now was kind of fine. They might just resort to that again, depending on what will be the pickup for the side of Team Flash, especially for Yoshino in the top lane. As Fuguan gets the Viego again, I like that very much. I mean, despite us, especially you, not really liking Fuguan as much, the Viego was his best pick. Split so far, so that's definitely a welcome surprise, if it is a surprise at all. Also, Viego working well with the enchanters, got buffed on the damage department as well, so these Kraken Slayer Viego builds definitely being strong right now. And just now we mentioned with him what will be the last pick. I want to see Jane going for the Gragas and just a good blind pick for Yoshino that can't be punished here. Fiora is banned, however, so what I could maybe see something like Camille, but that's not really relevant on the patches right now. If I look into his champion pool, Jason Signer also banned. Actually, Jax or Cannon are still up. I'm also
Are you frozen at the moment? Okay, I was making sure that's the case. So maybe we'll get more stream. My thought is that right now you need either it's going to be full AP Gragas, and then you want to be able to burst somebody down with the AP Gragas, or if you stick Gragas in the top lane, you want a mage that's going to help out with that department. And also, with the Talia grab, you don't have the most range in the entire world. I'm going to spit a name, and I think the name is Syndra. That's what I'm going to come to. And the reason why is because when you go ultimate somebody, and then they execute it as a result of the ultimate, then you get the reset on Viego, and then it's like, okay, then you're picking into Gnar in the top lane, or my apologies, then you're going to be picking into Gragas in the top lane, and maybe you go Gnar, maybe you go tank, maybe you go something else, and just stall that lane out, and then you're okay with how this plane plays on both sides to some extent. As oh, look at that. Okay.
Syndra, and that means
got-
Yoshino goes into the Gragas. I don't like that. And yeah, it's a draft being won. It was finished by an Ornn for Sunma. So on that side, it's solo AP Talia basically, as we assume that the Ornn can't really do much in the later stage of the game considering this damage, as he just basically has his base damage for that situation. So definitely a lot of pressure onto Nogo, but he played a fantastic game one on the Silas. But this Talia definitely needs to not fall behind in this game to really bring in the damage numbers, or just enable the side lanes also much. As with the level 6 power spike, maybe dive the bot lane is an angle that they can go for, as the bot lane will likely have priority as a Desire or Khan against Sevilulu. So for their side, it's play through bots, just weak side Sunma on the Ornn. He will be very fine with that one, and hope that there will not be a snowball on the other side. And it's also hard for Flash. I mean, I really don't like the draft altogether. I mean, it's Gragas for Yoshino, not a hard carry pick. Syndra for Jane, which is fine considering it is a scaling pick, but they have so few early game agency in general that they really need to hope that Box just kind of botches it. And I think that's just a bad setup in general.
I agree with you. Now, out of fairness as well, after the last game, and honestly, Yasuo has kind of stepped off the gas as being this like super hard top lane carry over the course of the split. So I'm not shocked to see that they end up kind of pulling off the reins a little bit. Maybe they want something more comfortable for Jane, because Jane did not look particularly. I'm not going to say bad on the Ahri, but again, I am going to say that it didn't seem like the Ahri was being used to its fullest extent more than anything else. We're going to jump into game number 1 here, or game number 2, my apologies, between Team Flash and Box Esports. Talia versus Syndra does end up being a bit of an interesting matchup, because Nugu at the beginning of the game has quite a bit of damage, quite a bit of wave clear to be able to kind of punish Jane, as Tamrio and Nugu find an angle on the interior to put some damage into Syndra. Not going to end up mattering all that much. Fuguan and Yoshino could also go in for a little bit of a late invade. Fuguan does have to path up in order to get around that ward that is currently sitting inside of that river brush. But it doesn't look like they're going to. Instead, they'll just go back to a more delayed 5-point type setup. And Team Flash will be fine with this. Box Esports will be fine with this. Everybody's fine with this.
Yeah, just don't flip it. I mean, for the side of Box Esports, it's not really much to play for, but they can't even get 7th place to have a better seeding for the relegation zone. But I mean, they still want to have like a good showing and just instill fear in the minds of the other VCSB compositions that will play up against them. And I mean, getting a 2-0 against Team Flash, who have been in the resurgence lately, would definitely be a statement performance for them. So they don't really go for any flips. Team Flash not either, because they're like more on the scaling approach. We addressed it earlier with them not really having the early game agency. And I mean, Sevilulu is kind of a scary bot in that regard. But they are scaling brilliantly, and they also still have these level 1, level 2, level 3 power spikes with the Derry, letting this one guaranteed non-skill shot auto attack that just is a huge unload of damage just in general. And even Zyra Khan, who are strong in the early game, can't really do much against that.
No, they cannot. If you go for an E and you can find a solid angle, actually all in at level 2 with the Zeri Lulu. I remember seeing that against, it was a really common tech against Lucian Nami, because their level 2 isn't particularly menacing because you don't have all your abilities on Lucian yet. So if you don't go for dash and you go for Q with W instead of anything else, you end up getting punished really hard. And here, if Slows and Zodiac decide to not go for the attack speed ramp, and then you end up at level 2 a little bit late and you don't have your feather pull, you end up getting bullied, which is exactly what happened there at the beginning. No-go, gonna get aggressed on by Fook1, gonna have to flash, deliver some damage. Tom Rio is here for a bit of a hover on this Wukong, just to make sure that Nugu is not going to be in a bad situation. But unfortunately, it is going to be Fook1 buying some space here for Jane in the mid lane. Ooh,
Yeah,
Tom Rio wants
maybe
this.
what he really needed. Tommy wants it. I mean, he has a huge HP advantage, and Fook1 shouldn't be able to win the duel here. I mean,
He didn't
he's
know.
tanking the weapon as well. Yeah,
Come
Diego
on, Tom
against
Rio.
Wukong. Not looking too good, and
Okay.
Tommy, he might just wait and straight up kill Fook1 here.
You see how good his timing is. That's a steal. Now Fook1's in a danger. Actually, Tom Rio just kind of doesn't care. He's like, all right, I got your red buff. I don't really care at this point. Honestly, auto
gets
attack
shot.
trading should be fine. Although Conqueror's already ready for Fook1, who is now Tom Rio stuck in a really, really bad position between a rock and a hard place at the moment. Gonna have to find a way to get out of dodge or find a kill of some kind. Flash over the Krug wall is gonna get that. Putin is gonna be able to dodge to some extent. W is gonna be able to buy him a bit of spaces. Zodiac's gonna be able to help him out. Now Putin's gonna have to flash away. Sora is gonna be able to deliver some additional damage as Putin wants to find something, but eventually saving Private Tom Rio is going to work out. With only the one summoner going down, it was the heal. Actually, that's not true. Tom Rio also flashed. So the flash and the heal going down in order to get that red buff steal underway. But it is a winning situation here for Tom Rio. I think he's perfectly fine putting Fook1 in that big of a hole to start with.
Absolutely. I mean, Putin also had to flash out, right? I mean, it's actually such a huge W for them. I thought he was an absolute clown to just go for this red buff and wait and just not immediately flashing over to the Drake pit, but he was buying time, then playing it offensively together with his bot lane, then going there for the weapon round and helping him actually out. So Putin has to flash away out of that play. So it's 2 summoner spells burned for 1 on the other side and still getting this red buff steal, which is very, very huge for him. So Tomio coming out on top of this situation, and now Team Flash bot lane, not in the most favorable position right now, playing up against this slow push, being pulled by the side of Slows and Zodiac. Can, of course, still retaliate at the turret itself here, but not really the ideal start for Team Flash that they really hoped for. At least for them, not like in the first game where Jane was dying for first blood very early on. This time, his next jungler, Fook1, actually covering him was definitely something that he can live with quite nicely. And Yoshino, as we expected, winning lane again. Gragas also very good against these tanks, especially in the early game. And yeah, maybe a dive potential with Fook1 together at this huge minion wave, but they aren't going for it right now.
No, they're not. Instead, Fook1's just trying to get some, camp back with the Krug steal coming out here up against Tom Rio. Sunmer just continues to stand in the top lane on his lonesome. Tom Rio also has yet to back, but is going to be going for a dragon take before the first back ends up coming through. It looks like also Fook1. I mean, at this point, you should know the dragon's probably getting taken because there's 2 full reset topside camps that are available that Tom Rio did not back for in any capacity. Knows his bottom side is cleared, so he's like, yeah, unless he's literally behind you in the opposing jungle on your side, taking camps away, it should not be that big of an issue here, because that's quite a bit.
Yeah,
Ooh,
expected
down
was to
mana.
scrap around. Yeah, trading this Drake for this whole topside jungle. Something that maybe both jungles can actually live with quite fairly. I mean, we saw in the first game, right? First Drake going over to Box Esports. In the long run, was definitely favoring them as they were getting the soul, and the soul arguably being what swung the game around for them in these later team fights, where without the soul, it wasn't really looking too hot for them either. So now for Team Flash, a little bit of gold for the Drake, something that they can maybe live off. And they are the scaling competition, but I mean, as long as it's just a Drake or 2, it's probably something within their remains that they are just kind of accepting to really lose just to get into this late game safely.
Okay.
Tomio's around as well.
Looks like they feel quite a bit better. Jane actually avoiding the battle dance coming through from the side of Zodiac, as that was a little bit risque. Box Esports hovering their mid laner quite nicely as Nogo and Nugu in this one has had a bit of a harder time again. And this is a solid pick, like the range advantage that Jane has over top of Nugu, as well as having some wave clear competition at the beginning of this game, does make quite a world of difference. They do save most of the wave. I got to give them a ton of props as Tom Rio and Zodiac, they did grab up 1 minion as recompense for everything that kind of came through right there. But they're perfectly all right with that, as it's just a wave advantage for Jane. And now they could even move towards either side of the map with everything else coming through. The tier and the Merc Treads kind of being done for Nugu means that the scaling's online, the mana regen's online. You can now start moving around the map with this ultimate when you have the pushing pressure against Jane.
Absolutely. And now Zodiac, not really being in the lane, just looking for maybe just to join the lane in the weapon 1 play, but just no, not going for it. But they are accompanied by Tomio and go for potential dive. But also the team is covered, right? Focus around, but so is the Lee of the Real as well.
Yo. Okay.
That's awkward.
Easy enough. Yeah, that's a lot of damage actually dropped into all of Box Esports. As Putin was able to dash over the wall, drop a W, and because of that laser, there is nowhere for Box Esports to go that makes them feel comfortable. So the attempted bot side dive ends up just getting absolutely nothing. Now Talia's got to head back to mid lane and fight up against
Scumbag
Jane.
put in.
Yeah.
Scumbag put in just using the enemy wall to empower his laser. That's just rude. But it works so brilliantly just to disrupt the dive play coming out.
I didn't say you could do that, Pudding. I didn't intend for that to happen, okay?
Yeah,
I wasn't
he
thinking
didn't
about the
even ask for
consequences of
Luca's
my own
permission.
actions.
Yeah.
Maybe he did. Honestly, we
Ask
didn't
for
see the
consent.
chat because it gets hidden by our observers, but maybe he did. Maybe he all chatted and
It's
said, hey,
better.
can I use this?
Yeah, maybe he agreed.
I like
Probably
to think
not
that.
though.
I like to think that Puddin's a good guy and asks for permission first before anything else.
Yeah,
I
he
doubt
asked for permission, but he then mutes Nugu, so he just assumes he said yes.
That's fair. I mean, honestly, that's ignorance more than it is, malice. So I think I'll take that. More than anything else, if it was Puddin that just said, I can't respond. Nugo can't respond to me, so I don't care what he said. It does not matter to me.
Exactly. And just apologize afterwards. Don't ask for permission before. And it's also maybe the approach you could go for. Either way, speaking of Puddin, he's destroying Souls in the bot lane, right? I mean, it's almost 20 CS up with basically even jungle and mid lane attention from both sides. I would actually argue maybe Tommy or Nugu did a bit more than Fukwan did. So Puddin and So are definitely making something this game. And this Dark Sphere quite not stopping the recall. I'm not sure if he intended to stop him there. I think it's fine to do either one, but I think he probably intended to do it and just didn't quite get around with it, which is kind of awkward.
Just a little bit. This game has been a lot worse for Box Esports to start things off. Obviously, there's no kills that have gone over, but they're down just kind of 600 gold ambiently. A decent amount of that is top lane, a small amount of that, a decent amount of it is in bottom lane as well. Junglers are pretty much even. I mean, you're back and forth quite a bit between the two teams. It's, again, 600 gold to 600 gold. It's not a massive advantage at the beginning, but again, given the fact that literally nothing has happened and that's a 600 gold lead is a little bit more pressing, a little bit more telling here from the side of Box Esports. As Tom Rio hasn't been able to get super active yet either.
Hate to say it, but it's a normal Box Esports game. Just slowly but surely losing the lanes. And that kind of makes the, in my opinion, bad draft from Flash kind of okay. Because, I mean, as long as the enemy isn't really forcing you to anything and you just pick the more scaling composition that's weaker early game and still win the early game by a slight margin, you're more than fine. Just currently, the sacrifice has been one Drake, and that's absolutely okay for them. As right now, also Fukwan's just going for this Rift Herald. I mean, if you trade one Drake for a Herald, especially the first Herald, it's more than fine for the Herald side of things. So, Team Flash living happily, at least in this game so far.
Now Slows might be able to get more plates, which could be a massive assistance. And in fact, Tomio is going to go in. Zodiac is going to try to find an ultimate and into everything else. Battle Dance is going to get dropped as Puddin, again, under everything else. Good play from Slows once again. He's going to grab first blood. I think that's absolutely worth it as more wave is denied to the ADC. Jane also going to have to flash to get away from Nugu, as the TP from Jane was there to make sure to cover for the ADC. But again, you had nothing. Slows made the aggressive play happen with the flash, the ultimate, and the feather pull. Again, Slows showing some really, really good weaponizing proficiency on these Xayah ultimates and these Xayah feathers that other ADCs just don't always use to its fullest extent. And because of that, Slows finds a first kill, actually gets a full completed mythic before Puddin does, despite being down like 10 CS in his laning phase.
Here we see it again. Flash quickness coming out and Puddin just now being there with the reaction, flashing and lightning crashing, and then just absolutely not doing any damage. And there's like the Featherstorm coming out and Slows being there with the reaction play. But also, I like what Jane did here. I mean, just TPing just to get this consolation prize kill, getting a shutdown even. And was 4 summons with both sides. It's actually kind of fine for flashing the bigger team, as soon as getting stacks, and this Drake will be flipped it again.
Okay, Nugu pressed the ultimate to try to get away. It is actually a secure from Tomrio. Once again, the smite steals to make sure to take these, as Fook 1 has no opportunity to be able to grab it up. A good combination play. Again, Nugu and Tomrio, combination of being able to wall two people off. They can't quite step up into the pocket and take the fight afterwards the way that they wanted to, so it ends up just being a smite flick and a big win kind of coming out here for the side of Box Esports. And slowly, they haven't brought back the lead entirely. It's actually grown pretty heavily. It's about 1,500 at this point. But the 2 dragons, the first blood, you're feeling good about some of those things that you collected here for Box.
Absolutely. And now it's out of box, but it's these two dragons, right? And it could have gone down south much more, right? Nugu going for this Weaver's Wall to immediate flash up because he was thinking that's kind of an in play, as Tomio was winning the 50-50, but all like flash with the scaling competition. They are 1000 gold ahead. It's okay to give away these first two drakes. Maybe even the third drake would be within the realms, but you definitely do not want to play against Kemsol yet again. They lost the first game to that one, and they are definitely getting reminded of this one potentially. But so far, Team Flash with the game plan, it's looking okay for them. I mean, Fuquan, if he would have been a bit more clutch with that Drake secure, would have been better. But I mean, it's just a 50-50. You can lose those ones easily. And now, Jane can take this wave. Yeah. Sidestep on the side of off. Means it's okay.
I really like everything because again, Nugu steps back in, has the blue buff, is going to be able to stick around here for a minute. Has TP probably come back to lane, and I want to see mana or AP start to get built because Talia's damage has been absolutely abysmal in this game. There we go. That's the damage going to start coming out. Luden's, it looks like it's going to actually be the build path here for Nugu, which makes sense given being the only AP kind of member on the entire team. Makes some pretty logical sense to have that one come through here for Nugu, as they're finally going to start putting some damage. There's some actual AP backing the rocks as this kind of star player for Box Esports started to come online a little bit more when the Ludens is done. The ultimates are going to be a lot more lethal. These cutoffs are going to be a lot better. The team fights are going to be looking a lot better. So Box Esports, I think they're going to get a lot more comfortable a lot faster in this game the second that Nogo is going to be kind of ready and raring to fight compared to normal.
I mean, they also put a lot of resources to just get slows ahead, and he was actually having this mythic power spike before Polinability had it, and this power spike difference is just over right now. I mean, it's still the shield Bowseri being there, so in that regard, Team Flash also kind of stabilizing. And yeah, you just Talia item builds, right? I mean, we have seen some World of Ages Talias, I think, in the LCK, and it was absolutely useless, as Talia's already not that strong in the early game, and needing 10 more minutes to really just probably ramp up definitely would have spelled disaster. And we addressed it also in Warfight. It's a single AP, so Ludens over Liandris makes a lot of sense. I mean, just needs an extra flat penetration burst to just instantly knock down someone, knock down Polin potentially, maybe even Jane. Definitely something that they can work around with. And we addressed also one other thing. Viego's crit scaling got buffed, so the crit with items like Kraken Slayer would have been something that he could go for. But in competitive, kind of just still the Divine Thunder edge instead of Fuquan, just because it's that much more safe. The damage output, of course, not as good, but it's just such a safe pick to take.
Wow. Okay, bumper card did go Nugu. That is Yashino popping the ultimate, throw it into Fuquan, press the ultimate, gets stunned by Jan. Like, Nugu had no counterplay there. Play safe, am I right? Like, what are you supposed to do when there's a wraparound by Yashino that
don't walk out of
smacking
place
you from out of nowhere? Yeah, nothing to accomplish. Because that's a first tower here for Jane out of the mid lane there. They're putting a lot more for Team Flash into this mid laner who's doing quite a bit of good work. Again, Jane feeling themselves quite a bit better than they had previously. Like I said, like what? Didn't even know he was there.
You can't even be mad at him, right? I mean, and also Jane, you addressed it right now. I mean, performing much better than the first game. I mean, the RA to Silas I didn't really like much. I mean, it was blind picked, of course, so Silas was the counter pick option, but he didn't really win lane. He played the lane very aggressively, got killed off for first, but as the game happened around. And this time on the Syndra, we criticized the pick a little bit as it had no early game agency, but he played a stable early game. Talia also not really that strong in that phase of the game anyway, and just now he's wrapping in the rewards just now. I mean, the TP for the first kill, the shutdown of the slows was very huge for him just now, and also another good play for him, and he's definitely someone you can rely on in these late game situations for now. And also now with the mid lane tier 1 being done, a lot of map control for Team Flash, and they need this one, especially for this next Drake. And they can't really afford to give up Drake after Drake. They did this in the first game, and it ultimately cost them the game. And if they just get a single Drake, just 5 more minutes really just of time to really buy, they will be very good for this game.
Zodiac almost gets assassinated, but fortunately he's going to be able to sneak out 15 seconds before the dragon ends up coming up. It might be a little bit late for Zodiac to be able to re-enter this fight. 1,500 gold lead, but a couple of ultimates burn right there. Specifically, Jane's ultimate might not be back on cooldown for this dragon fight as it comes through. Look at that damage, those slows. Gets wrecked as Putin's going to be able to run forward. Sunburst standing close enough to slows to actually have some kind of difficulty. Feather Pull is going to set up for a couple of different plays. Ornn Ultimate's also going to set up for something as Tamrio wanted a little bit of a wraparound. Zodiac shorts the ultimate as well. Going to just push off a couple of members. Zodiac or Tamrio now back into the back line. He's going to find something with the Cyclone. Jane wants some additional smoke, but there's no support here for Tamrio as he's going to go down to the E coming out from Jane. This Syndra did so much in this one fight. Literally drove out Tomrio, drove out Tomrio, drove out Zodiac, did a bunch of damage. Just like literally every member that took damage was just Jane. It was a Jane diff, super hard in that fight. And now with no smite, like Dragon feels like it's an inevitability for Flash here, unless a big fight comes out from Box Esports. But I don't think they fancy themselves a big coin flip here. So just walk back to lane, collect your gold. Rift Herald is on the board. It looks like Slows actually walked directly at that, so they're going to be able to pick that up and get some of the gold back, at least a bit of something. Big stack top wave could actually be a really, really good thing to drop this into if they're paying quite a bit of attention. Although Yoshino could be a bit of trouble here for Slows and for Zodiac, as there's no smite available anywhere nearby.
Yeah, it will be the consolation prize surely for the side of Box Esports to at least get this Rift Herald or Yoshino.
Okay.
That's secure. Either way, just a consolation prize, but it's very fine for side of the Flash.
What is going on here?
To go for this one. He's
They're
still
doing
in.
quite a bit.
They
That's
have to kill
a
everyone.
reinforcement from Jane. What are we doing?
Jane diff.
I don't.
You said it, Jane diff. I mean,
hard Jane diff.
I want to see a replay of this fight, but either way, I didn't really like them actually going for this fight, as they were dealing the damage before in any way. If Slows getting poked out, then they could just immediately went for the Drake, but they wanted to kill off this Wukong first to have the smite security out of the way. And I rarely see a Syndra running into a Wukong and the Wukong just running away scared, but Tommy who did that absolutely rightfully so, as Jane was so scary in that fight. As you see, I think it's not the replay of the mid lane fight, but what we see earlier where Tommy died the second time, it's just Fook one empowered by the Lulu, just doing the Moon King things and just absolutely destroying anybody who doesn't really one-shot him, just hard winning the DPS check. Enchanted by his support, and that's how Tommy died the second time there. And Flash just now, in these last few sequences, absolutely dominating the map, right? I mean, it's just the second Herald being dropped for many kills, getting one Drake, the first Drake overall in the game. You are outscaling already, and now all of a sudden they're almost 4,000 gold up.
And their investment into Jane is paying off massively. Again, I've talked about this as Jane has been a bit of a wishy-washy type player, where sometimes you have games like game number 1, where like the RE wasn't spectacular. You found a couple of charms, found a couple of plays that were okay, but you never really stood out. You never really did all that much, and a couple of times you're kind of out of position for the rest of your team. Then you have games like this, where like Jane is literally 1v5ing fights, dropping hundreds of damage on members that should honestly should not be dropped as low as they can on a single ability. Slows comes to mind, and thinking about just how quickly that Slows was removed from a handful of fights just off the back of Syndra being way too strong inside of things. This big ultimate comes through. Sunmer is going to pop the ultimate in the Ornn direction. That's big. Yeah, Wukong finds something, but again, Fook 1, my apologies, Tomrio just gets blown up by Jane's damage. At this point in the game, I don't know that anybody actually has the health to live Jane other than Sunmer. Like, Sunmer probably tanky enough to resist the Jane damage to some extent. You're not going to get one tap, but like anybody else is just getting devastated by a combo from the Syndra. And because of that, like, what are you supposed to do? Like how are you supposed to handle this game if you're Box Esports? You're getting outranged by Jane here by a significant margin. The rest of the team slowly catching up in gold. You're never winning a team fight. You're never winning an objective unless you kill off this Syndra, which has proved to be a very difficult thing to do.
Just the effort. Either way, jokes aside, find a flank on Zodiac, maybe. Just flash Grand Entrance the Syndra to some extent. I mean, her flash is also down. That's just maybe your best option. To just instantly kill Jane, and then maybe you can win the fight against Pullin and Fook 1. But I think you can't. I mean, you have to blow a lot of resources onto the Syndra in the first place, and then there's still like a lot of DPS coming through. The Enchanted Hyper Carry, the Enchanted Melee Carry in the Viego. Also, Yoshino is one of Aegis Gragas. Definitely a damage threat in his own rights. And you said it, but Summer is the only one not getting probably one combat by Jane. But also, he is not really happy just easily face tanking his abilities either, right? It's double penetration under his Jane. He definitely ignores a lot of those resistances from the Jug Show or from the Ornament Jug Show, which is the unspoken parasite, of course, as we all know. As we are moving around this Baron area right now. Baron spawned for a minute right now, and Team Flash with this composition might just go for an early Baron, right? They have a lot of Baron damage. Like, everybody deals decent amount of damage, and Yoshino can still easily tank it.
Okay. Rift Herald, I was about to say, Zodiac's got it and has to pop it somewhere. It looks like they're going to be able to deny its charge because the wave is just now coming in for the squad. So yeah, Team Flash, they're not even going to let a Rift Herald charge against the mid tower. It's just not going to happen. Instead, with Dragon on the way, like you said, Baron buff has to be something that you can threaten potentially. You have to think about threatening a lot of things on this map. Because again, Jane is just so loaded that there's nobody that can really make the resistances come through. Do you notice Ornn items are about to start coming in for Sunmer, which means that slowly some of the gold's going to get chipped away at just from the pure flat stats on those items kind of coming through. But we're still a ways away from feeling like that's going to make you any more comfortable than you are right now, especially again, because that doesn't do anything to help you survive most of the time. Instead, it's just going to help you do a little bit more damage, have some more base stats. But again, I don't think Jane cares about what your stats look like except your health bar going to 0. It's like me playing Pokemon. I don't care about any other status effects. The health bar is 0, I win. So it's not matters.
Yeah. Jane is hardcore nuzlocking in this game. He's also deathless, right? I mean, because if you would have one death, I mean, you would just need to box the side of Sindor. Actually, there's probably a good pun with box and playing against box esports right there. Speaking about these Pokemon references. Either way, you address the ornaments, right? It just kind of softens the blow a little bit, right? 4,000 gold is the difference. You kind of make up 1 out of those 4,000 with the Juxo upgrade. Either way, that's not enough, right? It's just softening the blow a little bit. You make it a 3k gold difference, and you should be like 3k gold ahead or more right now, as you are getting outscaled and outranged by Jane specifically, as he can just easily manage his team fights. And just now it's Fuqua just soloing the second chem take Drake, while the other team of Box Esports can just watch. I mean, not even watch because they don't really have any vision. They just go for the Baron as a desperation attempt, but it's probably enough time for Flash to rejoin for this one, as Fuqua is already on it.
Yeah.
He actually stopped the Drake. He actually stopped the Drake. I respect that.
Stop the Drake. That's interesting. Okay, has to get over here just as fast as possible. Now Fuqua is going to be in place for this. Blast Cone's over. That's empowered Blast Cone. Now Tommy has to find a way to get back into the pit because the Baron is being sat at. In fact, actually, Team Flash feels comfortable. They say, okay, we pushed you off. That's all that we need. I was willing to say, hey, leave him there. Like, you take a chance. I didn't think they'd have the damage. I was wrong. Fuqua absolutely made the right call to come over here at the last possible second to make sure that there was nothing there. And honestly, solid play from Box because it did remove them from the defense of the Dragon, at least for a hot minute. It means that they do have a bit of time for setup.
Oh, Yoshido?
Double flash now underneath of the mid tower. Should be Jane being able to go down. Nice Zonias to avoid all that damage, because that could have been lethal for onto Nugu if that stun ends up hitting. Now with the Dragon going down on the, Dragon Days going down, Box Esports cannot threaten for the Baron. They clear out
try though, and
it's not gonna matter. Yeah, they're just gonna walk out.
No,
now.
they won't try. Either way, I think that's just in general macro improvement from the VCS coming out, right? The bottom tier team seeing Fuquan's probably on the Drake, we just at least start the Baron to threaten it, and then just forcing Fuquan to pull away, and Fuquan actually doing so. Definitely both teams kind of being on the right page, considering the macro gameplay. I think the correct call initially would have been maybe for Flash to just put Pullin to the Drake to solo it, and just have the rest being there in the standoff, because even without Pullin, with Jane, with Fuquan, Yoshino, and so you're still strong enough to at least hold the line and stop them from taking Baron, especially with Fuquan being there for potential smite steal. Either way, they just now rectified it. Getting Fuquan to pull away from the Drake, stopping the Baron attempt, not just starting off the Baron yourself when it's on 3k, because it would just be a flip against a team that could potentially steal it away. Also, just showing some resilience on the side of Flash. I mean, a greedy team would have just taken the Baron themselves and potentially lost it there, so kudos to them. And now, it's just, at the end of the day, some time wasted by the side of Box Esports. They lose the Drake anyway, and Flash happily is keeping to scale. Also, nice play mechanically from Yoshino, going for the Flash body slam. Nugu correctfully reacting with his own Flash, and later on against Jane's combo to use the stopwatch. I really like to see it. Both macro and micro is getting better within this region.
Yeah. Okay, I was waiting here for a second just because it looked like Baron buff was still maybe on the board. Box Esports feels like they need to do something drastic. And a Baron buff would help them quite a bit because they'd be able to crack some structures, get some gold back, and really do make a difference inside of this game. As right now, again, Jane has been a hero here for Flash. After last game, the performance from Nogo was just so good that it was tough to see whether or not Jane was going to be able to compete in the series in general. But here, very clearly showing us that they know what they're doing. And with another needlessly large as well, I have to anticipate that it's going to be a Rabadon's the third item. And on third item, that means that Syndra is going to... There's nobody that lives the Syndra damage at that point. Like, if you get hit by a Syndra ability, you're just dead or you're out of the fight. Like, there's absolutely no coming back from that one.
I want to see Jane one combo the on. With that can be might be possible.
I think it could be possible as well. When you have like 800 farm and everything else coming through, ultimate from Nogo was utilized. Although the ultimate from Fuquan was actually used really effectively to deny this too. Nugu survived a little bit longer than I thought he would, but again, every single possible tool denied here from the side of Team Flash, as Yashino denied the ultimate and the shove was canceled out by Fuquan, as that means that Nugu is now going to be out. They're looking for something. Puddin is going to get jumped on, and that is Tomrio dead. There's nothing else to be said. And even worse, the crash down allows for the auto attacks to bring down another member as Tomrio is going to go. And that's Team Flash getting Baron. That's probably just Team Flash getting the game right here.
Yeah, that's Baron into the game probably, and the mistake from Box Esports was the following. They had Nugu in the sideline split from the rest of the team, and they also fought with Jane being like within the 1000 range vicinity, so Jane could press the delete button onto anyone on the side of Box Esports, and that's just something that couldn't happen. Kneel before Jane is what I would say in this situation, as they are grabbing the Baron on the side of Team Flash right now. Jane not looking to die anytime soon with this game, and Puddin and Jane together just can easily steamroll those fights. I mean, Wukong looking surprisingly tanky for like a carry champion, but not tanky enough against all the damage coming out, as here we see the mid skirmish again, what's happening off screen. Puddin kind of getting hard against them, but Zeri, with the Sheepo, with the Lulu being around, can just easily at least survive the initial burst and then just keep rolling on her own damage, and Slows can just watch as his team crumbles before him.
The fact that they found a jump on Puddin like that and still got nothing, okay, there's a bit of jump. Jane is... I was gonna say being threatened, but honestly, I don't think there was any threat there. So, like, I think Jane just walked away more than anything else. And during the course of that fight, the fact that like Tomrio and Zodiac got full combos off onto Puddin, and Puddin was not even a half health because of the shield bow. Like I said, this one just feels chalked. I feel like you don't have the damage to actually make this game happen here if you're the side of Box Esports, because I'm not seeing it. Again, they were very slow at the beginning of the game, and again, giving up that much pressure to the Syndra when the Syndra has as much agency as she does in a game like this with the range advantage, with all the damage, it's so hard for Box Esports to now make any sort of response whatsoever. Like, nobody can really kill Jane. Nobody can even step up to Jane to contest. Like, I'm not sure what their intention is. So walking in, considering game number 3, do you think it's mid pressure that just kind of gives us everything? Is it just whichever mid laner is doing well? I know it's a bit of an over distillation of everything that's happened, but it seems like these two have been quite important over the course of the series.
Seems to be a bit of a simplification, of course, but either way, I think it is important, of course, that Jane is on a pick that really has impacted any stage of the game, and the Arby just kind of didn't have that. Also, Yoshino the Gragas, I like it much more in general. I mean, in the draft, I hated it because Jane was such a good Gragas, but if he can play Syndra to this level, like, why not give him Syndra again? Or for the side of Box Esports, ban away the Syndra or prepare a counter for it, because the Talia just isn't it. The Talia kind of just... Considering her power budget, right? I mean, she's also like a scaling mage that kind of has a weak early game, but some of her power budget is within being global, and being global isn't good when you are losing side lanes anyway, which Box Esports should expect to do. Like, you don't reinvent your own playstyle or identity within a single series, so the Talia for Nugu kind of just isn't it, as you won't have Sunma beating Yoshino anytime soon.
No, I agree with you wholly. Not to mention, both games, it feels like mid lane has gotten a counter pick when it was unnecessary to give that away, which is something to consider. That, like, again, Nugu showed the Talia long before the Cinder came out, and last game, the day before, already got picked before the Silas ended up coming out. And because of that, it led to both mid laners kind of getting better lanes, which helps set up. It helps you get priority, helps you kind of punish. Again, if you have a winning mid lane, you end up skirmishing a bunch alongside your jungler. It means that, like, top and bot aren't going to be as kind of flexed upon. And if you don't have that mid jungle kind of combination, the way that this game specifically has gone for Nogo and Tomrio, you can see what the results are. Like the results are quite terrible. As slowly, it's not even like them fighting that's leading to this. They're all 5 members for Box Esports up. Slows on the other side of the map, just pushing because Slows is just trying to get any amount of gold back to be able to do something here. But there's just so many minions in this base right now. There's Zodiac finding engaged, but no damage actually comes down to follow it up. Slow's only just now backing as well.
I think the play from Slows is kind of fine because he's getting objective bounties, and I think it's not even a finishing push either way from Team Flash. I think they would get those 2 inhibitors either way, or just even bait themselves into a fight, because, I mean, we have Slows on our side. We would just maybe try to at least have our last stand right there. What Slows is doing, I think it's actually the best out of a bad situation, so to say. And he's getting at least some more gold for himself, some additional experience, so he can at least hit potentially level 16 this game, and maybe even 3 or 4 items despite being behind. So this, however, was something that looks kind of stupid, but is the correct call in my opinion.
No, yeah. Slow's trying to get something bad. It's trying to generate some counterplay of some kind. I know it basically does nothing at this point in the game, but a tower's a tower. A little bit of gold for Slows, a little bit of gold. You never know when you're going to hit a feather storm and pull 10 feathers through Jane and ended up getting 1,000 gold shutdown out of nowhere. And then all of a sudden the game gets swapped on its head because then you have Ornn items, you have shutdowns on multiple members that go over. If you could deny that X-Dragon, Box Esports, they're not dead in the water right now. Again, it's just something drastic has to change in the landscape of this game for them to have any sort of chance. And obviously, the Xayah attempting to make some kind of change to ensure that that's going to happen here, but it's still very hard pressed to occur. We have 2.5 minutes, but the Baron buff is also 1.5 minutes away. A little bit of lax downtime here for Team Flash and Box Esports, as we shouldn't expect them to just flip the game outside of a big kind of objective timer here, Quincy.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was Fukwon maybe just going to Zodiac right there, but of course, with the limited vision, he wasn't sure if he can really go for this play. As here, we see a cast from Yoshino. And actually trap Fukwon here, but they can't commit it to him. He's too tanky.
Yeah, I mean... After Nogo, of course, misses the seismic shove, I get the reference, which is a really good one, because they definitely did not... They could have done much more. Fukwon did have ult and flash, though, so not under any real threat to worry about. As top tower under siege, teleported in from Jack Show. Now Zodiac actually gets denied on the front line as well. That's going to be the ultimate pop from the Ornn to try to find some amount of damage. Feathers already got pulled once here by the side of Slows. As nobody... look at this, no one's even under half health. Fukwon, the only one even close, as that top tower... Just so much damage that came down onto it. Not quite able to break it, but again, they're not that pressed about it. They had a minute and a half till Dragon, 30 seconds until Baron. They're okay taking their resets, spending their gold, and getting back out on the map.
Yeah, I mean, just now getting the standing gold means that they definitely have something to shop for, as we see Jay now very close to getting 4 full items. I mean, also just now some percentage magic penetration, which seems very good, especially against Wukong and Ornn here. I mean, the Ornn is very, very tanky in that regard, at least. I mean, I said I wanted to see like the one combo to Ornn and actually killing him. This probably won't happen this game, but at least he has enough damage to really threaten the front line even, and the backline much more so. As TP already forced out against Nogu. It will be a Baron setup instead of Flash, and they can just play the slow game, right? It's double inhibitors being down on side, and also the inhibitor further away from the Baron itself, so very easy setup for them. And even if they don't really succeed in that, as long as they don't lose a fight or anything, they can just play for the soul in a minute later.
Sure can. Bottom lane is getting stacked up against, so you do have to worry about that. That's why you saw a no-go on the bottom side of the map, trying to make sure that that happens. And with all the Ornn items through, I mean, in fairness, it's only about a 2,000 tangible gold lead coming out here from the side in terms of item stats. Now, that's not to say that there aren't other things. For example, Syndra being stacked on Splinters means that the Rabadons gets a ton of extra because you just get a bunch of flat percentage AP. Baron's going to go down. Nothing else to be said about that one. If I were Box Esports, I would take the mid tower, I would take the Dragon, and I would walk away. Like, there's not much else to be done here. 20 seconds. Maybe run it both. Like, I don't even know. Like, you're not going to be able to do much else here in this situation. The back's not going to do much for you unless you're trying to stop this push coming in from the side of Team Flash.
They have to,
which
though.
They are. Yeah, they have to.
They just get finished if they just don't back here, so they can't even go for the Constellation Prize Drake here to just stop the soul, so it will just be inhibitor turret, maybe even the inhibitor, and they need to have the last set right here, because the last inhibitor is 4 times more available than the other ones, so they have to go for the fortunate play here.
Here we go. All right, big ultimate coming through, trying to find something. Fukwon dropped, but Jane eviscerates one member of the team. Now, Puddin's time to shine. He flashes in, gonna use the crash out, all the damage. Yeah, this team's just too loaded. Like, there's not much else to do. I was saying, like, okay, itemization-wise, maybe they're evened up, but it just doesn't matter because there's too many things that are going away at Team Flash, as they're gonna be able to walk out of this one, take us to a game number 3.
Yeah, Team Flash absolutely beating them with their walls in the last fight, and it was a decent hold by the side of Box Esports to at least accept that we have the base right there and not just go for the Constellation Drake, as it would have ended the game right there. They at least tried to have like a last hit on this last inhibitor. They are a little bit late on that one, but either way, it was a lot of things tried, but no things succeeded for them, and Team Flash equalized the score with a much... Can I even say with a much better draft? I mean, we didn't like the draft, we didn't like the substitutions, we just liked how they approached the game in general and how they really played it out on the Rift, and that was enough to challenge Box Esports to the 3rd game right now.
I really like the Syndra, and I think they played around it really well, and I think it did great things for this squad. Not to mention, Puddin was unlocked a lot more on the Zeri. Game 1 was really good for the Zeri as well. It's just that he ended up getting caught a bunch of times at the beginning of the game. This time, a lot cleaner game from Team Flash, a lot more definitive, kind of defined game from Team Flash. And part of that might be that that's what the main benefit of having the substitutes in was that, like, yes, you had some different talent. Yes, you had some younger players that are doing better things, But ultimately, having people who have been playing together all split is going to make a world of difference when it comes to macro decisions, when it comes to kind of understanding each other. And that clearly played a part here in this first game. So now walking into game number 3, what are you looking for between these two teams? Like, what does Box need to do to continue to pressure Team Flash? Back them into a corner. Like, is it draft? Is it strategy? Like, what are you looking for them to do? Now that they have the onus to kind of do as they please, given that they're already in relegations.
Do not invent new things. Draft towards your own identity. Accept that Sanma won't beat Yoshino. You won't win the Titans anyway. Either ban the Syndra, pick the Syndra away, or counter it. I want to see a clear answer to that one. That they maybe even they find the right answer and still don't succeed anyway. But I want them to see something that at least can work on paper. And this first situation with like the Talia option for Nugu just wasn't it.
No, I agree with you. I think figuring out a way to get Nugu a little bit more agency at the beginning of the game, having that mid jungle kind of fight up with one another as usual. Again, like you said, don't reinvent the wheel. You have no reason to. All you have to do is use what works for you, and you should be perfectly fine. So now we get a chance. We have game number 3 on the horizon here to decide who's going to take the series. With Team Flash fighting for their potential life for relegations and everything else kind of coming through, see if they're able to keep themselves in a solid position to continue competing for that opportunity. As we'll be back in just a couple minutes.
KDA, should we show them how we do it every day? Kali that girl, Kali go girl, Kali gon' stop, Kali gon' skirt, Kali got a job, Kali got a word. 뜨거워 언제나 don't get burned. 넘쳐 흘러물 든 a buffet, 죽여주잖아 like a buffet. 누가 감히 on my outfit, 그 문 열지 마 that's a rock day. Don't give any more cause I'm greater than. 필요 없는 시험들 다 뿐이미. But all of my numbers are talking back. 부루마법 message monopoly. 눈종이 돈이나 real money 필요 없대. 너네들이 많은 돈들 go get it, go get it, go get it. 더 미션 눈을 못대 못해 그래 너도 get it cause I got it different. Is life upon the throne. 시작하면 끝을 보는 거야. You want more? No, I got it, so here you go. You look like you could use some more. No, I got it and never running low. Yeah, I got more than enough, set it up and away. You know I got it like bum bum, blow your mind. Never giving less than it's how it'll stay. You know I got it like all day, all the time. When I go, it's so dope, get it cool, but I'm cold. I don't sit in a mode, I'm a rebel. I don't do what you say, making moves. I don't wait while I smile in your face. I got different DNA. What's higher than the top? That's me. Come take a look before falling at my feet. 조용히 몸을 숙여봐. So take a look, 나를 기억해, queen. All I'll ever know is life upon the throne. 시작하면 끝을 보는 거야. You want more? No, I got it, so here you go. You look like you could use some more. No, I got it and never running low. Yeah, I got more than enough, set it up and away. You know I got it like bum bum, blow your mind. Never giving less than it's how it'll stay. You know I got it like all day, all the time. Way out，感觉犹如海浪的微浪，不断往前，oh you never way down. This is how I do it every day. Wow, wow，这一路上的奇迹都记住了你的每一个瞬间，无比的耀眼。I know you want some more，准备好就一起走，Giving it all more。No, I got it, so here you go. You look like you could use some more. No, I got it and never running low. Yeah, I got more than enough, set it up and away. You know I got it Legends never die. When the world is calling you, can you hear them screaming out your name? Legends never die. They become a part of you. Every time you bleed for reaching greatness, relentless, you survive. They never lose hope when everything's cold and the fighting's near. It's deep in their bones, they'll rot into smoke when the fire is fierce. Oh, pick yourself up, 'cause legends never die. When
game of the day, where Box Esports and Team Flash are now tied 1-1. Our bottom two teams technically inside of the VCS, although there's a tied record, so it's actually two of our bottom three teams, I think is a more accurate way to say it. As Box Esports, again, continues to try to upset the dreams of Team Flash by forcing them into the relegation tournament, or at least putting them in a bad situation to get out of the relegation tournament. Quincy, we've had a day of games. We had game one was pretty good for the side of Box. They ended up doing things the way that they needed to. And Team Flash really cleaned it up in their second game without the substitutes in, which is unfortunate because I thought the subs weren't too much of a problem, but clearly understanding better what they needed to do. Now we're back on the sides of game number one. Do you think that has some benefit to it here for the Box Esports squad?
Maybe. I mean, I don't really have a strong opinion on either of those. I mean, Blue Side has been winning both those games, and they now get to be on Blue Side. So statistically, it just means that they definitely have better chances right now. Either way, we addressed it beforehand, but before we went into this break, it's just find a clear answer to what really Jane brings to the table. Find something where Nu can really work with and have some own agency. Talia just wasn't it with losing side lanes, so maybe get the Silas back, just get anything against the Cinder pickup, maybe even the Banhammer, but either way that's not what they are going for as we head into this last draft of this series at least. But they are at least betting away the Zebi from Puddin, which he has played in games if I remember correctly, so at least some adaptation is forced right here.
Absolutely. As we also get the Jason, the Annie, the Sejuani, the Draven away from slows as well, and then the LeBlanc, which is a no-go special, as immediately Box to figure out what to go to. The Lee Sin was great from Tom Rio. It means that if the Wukong gets grabbed, that they have their particular pick. Although the Viego has been something that people have grabbed in the past compared to the Lee Sin, which was good for Fook 1 in game number 1. So we kind of have both junglers' preferred pick here, as the Wukong, despite having like a 70% win rate or something inside the VCS, in this series specifically, has actually lost both games. So both of them erring on the side of caution, just not going back to the Wukong. It's been learned enough. The tech has been figured out, and there's nothing more that you can really do in the circumstance. As both junglers get locked in, now it's a question of bot laners, because that's usually our next stop.
Yeah, and Viego actually a good pickup against Lee Sin, right? He absolutely likes to even win the duels against him. It's just only very shortly Lee Sin favorite, and that passage can get bridged off quite easily, as it's still Fook1 on the Viego, which I very much like. I mean, I don't even in general like Fook1 and Sora being back in after game 2 as well as you did. Justice comes out on the side of Ikigai and of course TQ. Either way, just also can't really blame the main players, right? I mean, they also played fine in their own regard. And yeah, I mean, I like Fook1 Viego, so it's definitely a delight to see. Much less so is Sora on the Lotus, but of course, still just a very straightforward pickup. In the VCS, you will always see it. We kind of just have to live with that one. As Aphelios gets locked in, I mean, Aphelios is usually paired with something like a Fresh, or maybe even a Lulu. Blitzcrank, however, would be like something new, and I wouldn't expect it. I mean, it's just something that you can play against something like a Fresh. Braum, however, makes more sense, as it's a very good pickup against all these melee engaged supports, as he just wins the melee all in if it ever happens to be one.
Yeah, Braum has come up as perhaps the number one counter pick that I've seen here in the VCS to the Nautilus, where any team that picks Nautilus, they just go, oh yeah, we'll just pick Braum. And with the Aphelios, I think there's a lot of benefit to it. If you've got Severum, you can really pop that very, very quickly. If you've got Calibrum, you can hit it from a longer distance. But the Jinx on the other side will be a bit of a force to be reckoned with, as even after the couple of patches, like the Jinx is still really, really powerful here on the bottom side of the map to fight against this Aphelios. So still some possibility for putting in Sora to have a decent enough laning phase. Very different look than we saw for the first two games. When it comes to the bot lane, is obviously there's no Zeri and there's no Xayah, which has been a good combination. That's the two games have had both of those two champions in both of them. And now we get the Jinx and the Aphelios, the hyper-scaling combination here between the two teams.
As you say that, right? I mean, Jinx also like one of those picks that can even contest the early game priority for Unofficial, right? Even with the strong weapons coming out, he can just easily just mash on the wave, her with the rocket launcher, has to spend some mana for it, but at least can compete with that one, as that's a lock-in for the side of Pullin. I'm just worried, like, where's Fresh? I mean, this has Fresh been disabled on the patch? I mean, why are they not playing Fresh? It just kind of seems something that was like an obvious answer for the side of maybe even pairing it with either Aphelios or the Jinx. It's just such an excellent support right now, and they just refuse to play it for some reason, just defaulted to Nautilus Braum for whatever reason they want to. Either way, that's what they are going for. It is combo pickers all around, as Draven gets banned away. Why do they ban? No, I'm bullshitting. It's actually Akali and Silas being banned away. The Draven was the first rotation ban. So they are through holding the mid lane pool, and that's like
Wow.
a very obvious one, right? The Cinder from Jane being taken away. I mean, after the Silas pitch counter makes a lot of sense. But the Ari also, I think they are doing Jane a favor with that one.
Maybe just a little bit, as trying to figure out what to do in the second rotation. Top laners were basically untouched right there. With the Silas ban, it's a double thing because you can actually take it into Malphite pretty effectively. So now Malphite is the pick. It could go to Jane, don't get me wrong, but I expect it to go to Yashna. I think we both expect it to go to Yashna here in an attempt to get some sort of counter pick. Although, again, it can still be flexed very heavily to both lanes. I actually just played it last night, Malphite mid lane last night, and I did the most damage of the game, which was wild. That's just something that can happen normally inside
That's
of the
just a
modern
current
game.
meta. Or you're
Yeah,
just
it's current
insane.
meta. Just
Yeah.
Malphite. Maybe I'm
Yeah.
just insane. It happens
Yeah.
from time to time, you know. This would be
The greatest of
super
all time.
passive. Yeah, it's true. I'm not. I don't know that I love the Victor here because this is so slow. Like it's Victor Aphelios. You're not and Orn. You're banking on like level 15 fights.
And they are the team that usually loses the laning phase, so they
Yeah.
definitely need to have like a miracle in the mid game where they just maybe have a throw from Flash side. Either way, I think it's okay. What I wanted have seen much Mother would have been something like a Gragas to just deny it from the side of Jane, because they can still just go to Gragas on their side. And they are, however, hover device, and it could also just be like their potential option to have like this
That was a
magic
lot.
damage DPS going around, and it is a locked in. So Wise just to contest the Victor before the Victor has the Ghost Evolution upgrade number 1, the 100 stacks, so he has a Death Ray upgrade. It should be even priority wise favored for the side of the Wise. So all around, aside from maybe the top lane matchup, it is Team Flash favored for the early game. And I think Team Box just doesn't have any way where they really like threaten Flash in the slightest. So I think it's just them hoping to get late game to an even state somehow. And I just think that's not enough.
Yeah, I guess the one caveat is that Tomrio exists on the Lee Sin, and Tomrio has been an absolutely electrifying addition to this squad because of the playmaking potential that he's been able to have. But again, they are banking so heavily on getting some kind of early game jumpstart or just praying that they can make it to 30 minutes in this game before they can really come online. Once Orn items are on, and once Orn gets scaled up, once Victor gets scaled up on like 2-3 items, once Aphelios is on like 2 items, this team does become absolutely monstrous. But again, getting there is the difficult kind of job. I actually would have preferred No-Go to grab up the Rise. I think that would have been the proper play because you would have had a lot of wave clear. You could have joined alongside the Lisa. You could have done a lot more with that pick specifically. But unfortunately, they go for the full scaling, and now they're kind of stuck in a weird position where Flash has so much agency in this game. It's going to require heroics. So if you're Box Esports, who are you out? Who is your hero? Which lane are you playing for if you're Tomrio to try to really set yourself up?
For the Orn, obviously. I mean, the Gangster is definitely decent. You can easily kill the Malphite. Just wait, you can't. So it's kind of hard. Just in general, right in the meta, you have to play around the bot lane. Actually, getting one early kill for the victim might be excellent, as you then accelerate his Glow's Evolution passive to really have like this contest where it's the Death Ray upgrade to this contest the player against the Wise. So maybe actually mid lane will be his focus right now. And he also did it in game 1, right? Jane was the early death on the RE against the Silas, and starting off from there, it was very smooth sailing for the side of No-Go, so maybe that will be their approach for this game 3 as we load onto the Rift and see no level 1 shenanigans. However, I almost expect like some early cheese gangs from Tomrio, because he is a player that's known to do that one, and the thing, he's kind of the one player that really has the tools in his hands to really propel this early game, so they really can scale into it.
Let's go. Quincy. We're in game number 3. Everybody, we're in game number 3. Box Esports versus Flash. Again, the stakes aren't particularly massive, but a relegation tournament awaits 2 teams, and Box Esports going to be one of them. Just a question of who our other one is going to be. And with only 4 days remaining, well, I guess technically 3.5 after this game is done, 3.5 days of games remaining, figuring out what's going to happen. If you're Team Flash, you are sweating a little bit because you have to remember that they still have to play Team Wales. Team Secret plays Cerberus and Team Wales, so Team Secret is actually in a really rough position to fall because they have to play 2 of our playoff teams in order to get into or to get out of relegation tournament, which means if Box Esports beats Flash here, but like Flash is right there with them in the thick of it at the bottom of the standings, potentially with the running the risk. Because obviously, I think Team Wales has showed up at the back half of the split to do a lot better. Obviously, 2-0ing Saigon Buffalo was a pretty big indicator that this team is on point right now. So that means that, like, if Team Flash loses here, they have to play against Wales and Team Secret plays against Wales. We're assuming that's going to be a wash and both of them are going to lose. Then it's a matter of, can Team Secret beat Cerberus? And let's be real, this is late season Cerberus. The answer is probably yes.
Yeah. I was about to say, like, you can't just count on Cerberus performing. So Team Flash definitely is sweating right now. I mean, they also know Cerberus. I mean, especially Fuk1 and Pullin should know because they are former Cerberus players. They are probably within the gears of the Cerberus late game season trolling, or just the Cerberus kind of way to just be kind of good again, but still be kind of the team that loses to Box, which is something that they have shown like a few weeks ago. So even I, as an avid Cerberus Ultra fan, can of course give credit to that, as them losing to Box didn't really surprise me all too much. Either way, Team Flash definitely, speaking about this, we just know the rest of the stakes, definitely want to try hard this game and do everything they can do in their minds to really run the win home. Also one of the reasons that they're probably using the starting players again. I mean, of course, the other ones didn't really do bad at all. They played actually stellar, but I mean, you still want to have like the most synergy possible here and give it your all. As we see, something that I'm kind of surprised about, Victor Nugu actually winning the first 3 levels here and shoving in Jane and winning in CS.
They are. It was really shocking. I was going to complain about the Rise play there for a minute because Jane went like EW at the beginning. I'm assuming what the intention was is that they were trying to set up a gank with Fuk1 directly into the mid lane, and then Nugu was just like, no, and had the flash, actually burnt the flash at the very kind of opening of the game, likely off the back of an W coming through from Jane, but it meant that you lose a lot of your wave control because obviously you don't have your Q to be able to bounce between minions, so kind of the biggest wave clear advantage that you got at the beginning of the game was exchanged for that flash, which means that Nugu gets a little bit easier of a laning phase here, get it back, get a TP in. Rise isn't going to have a significant advantage over top of Jane to start this one off, but again, that early game, now gonna have to be punished. Like, there's no reason that flash is necessary from Nugu to be able to avoid Jane in the laning phase unless Fuk1 comes back for more.
Yes, and we see already Yoshino in the top lane. Still being lane dominant, right? I mean, Malphite against Ornn, pretty even matchup. Maybe slightly Malphite favored in the early game, but also everything in the Yoshino with the Sunman matchup is Yoshino favored, and this is what we see here. The longer trade should favor the Malphite, as he can just run the Thunderclap and the Brutal Strikes to just have this additional Ornn damage, while the Ornn just basically has his combo, and if the combo is out, the combo is out, right? His auto attacks are far from impressive. And also auto attacks in general against Malphite, not really the most impressive thing, right? So playing against a huge wave, definitely not something that Samba should do, as Yoshino has very huge control over this wave. However, the bot lane looks better for Box, I gotta say. I was expecting the Jinx to really contest the priority a bit more, but that doesn't seem to be the name of the game for Bot inside, as he's also running the Carl start, already based for the Doran's Blade on his side, and is looking to scale up to really hit his power spike with 100 minions.
Yeah, the second that the gun ended up swapping there, it was a hook gain attempted from Sora. So Sora making a good read on the gun play. As Box Esports, again, they want to be able to clear this out. They're actually going to be stuck in a really weird position here unless Slows can kind of clear this. That's going to be the flash. Nice dodge from both sides. Rise ultimate to the bottom side of the lane, but I think Zodiac's going to have the shield readily available. Yeah, that's going to deny a fair amount of the damage. Zodiac going to be able to flash out the other side now, as that's a 4-person gank attempt to the bottom side of the map. And the more of these that happen and the less of them that succeed, the better off that Box Esports is going to be, because, again, they're the ones that are scaling for late game. So if you continue plays like this, Team Flash just not going to be able to live for very long. I like that they're getting aggressive, trying to take advantage of some of the early game they've got, but they do have to make things stick in order to actually have it work.
While true, they got both flashes from both bot laners, so what I now focus my eyes on is what will they do with this flashes being down? Will they punch it again in the next 5 minutes? They have a lot of time window to really go for something like this, and I mean, just now good play by Fuk1 to just barely get the Spectral Moorstone in, then a Whale follow up by the side of Jane, Wound Prison of course being there, so the flashes are being forced. At the end of the day, it is a small win in the net waves for the side of Box Esports, as Nuga could just use the Chaos Storm to clear off this mid lane wave and at least get a small CS lead for now. But will Flash find another punch within the next minutes? If they can, I think it's worth. If they can't, I think Box Esports is very happy with what happened just now.
Yeah, the biggest thing is that flashes need to be punished, which is something that I always... it's my biggest complaint about junglers is when they burn flashes and summoner spells and don't find a way to repeat. And they do find a way to repeat here. Zodiac was stuck out in the river. Okay, Exhaust is going to get dropped really late from Zodiac. That's going to be a flash in to make sure that the play ends up going through as Jane going to go back over top the wall. That one was Zodiac, I think, going out in the river, trying to fish for wards and things like that, not expecting Puddin and Soren and Fuk1 to show up all at once. Because of that, First blood over to the side of Team Flash. Finally, again, doing as we said, again, the opposite of a caster curse, a caster blessing there, saying, hey, they need to punish without the flashes being up. And would you look at that? That's exactly what happened.
I like seeing that because it makes me look less stupid, right? I'm actually going for this play. Either way, not the Drake being started, which is
This
something
is
that they
not
might
the
have gone
move.
for.
Slows.
But Aphelios is up. Yeah.
Oh, what are we doing now? Okay. Now, it's one thing if you're Zodiac and you're like, hey, I can clear some wards, I might have some free time, they might have backed. Like, there's plenty of reasons why you could potentially suspect that you have open space to go clear a ward, right? That, however, was pretty criminal. As you know, Puddin and Sora were already on the way. They knew they were probably on the bottom side. Worst case scenario, they're on Dragon. So you stepping up that far, it's just going to get punished. And Team Flash just collect another kill on the bottom side after the flashes were burnt. And we already talked about this. Like we're for all intents and purposes, we're chumps. They should know this. Like they burnt their flashes.
Yeah.
Like you don't need omnipotence to know not to walk up in the laning phase without a flash.
I think what he thought was that he's on Dragon anyway, the Dragon is gone. I at least shove this wave so I don't get frozen on. But I mean,
Fair enough,
you can't just do that in a 1v1, 1v2, 1v3. And I mean, even if they do the Drake, like, they are very short around the corner, you should probably hurry up with this situation and just quickly do it. I think the correct play is just accept that you might just get frozen on and just nullify or sacrifice the CS lead that you earlier established. And now it's like the worst of all worlds, right? They lose the Dragon, they lose both kills, the CS gap is smalling out anyway, and they also lose the first Herald. It's a complete disaster basically, just from this whole bot lane play where they only lost 2 flashes, which at the end of the day would have been fine if it was just that.
Yes, and now, I mean, Slows is going to be able to shove in a pretty big wave. Without Zodiac here immediately, though, I mean, they're not going to be able to clean up what should have been a turret plate, almost certainly. Zodiac now is going to be here. There's no jungle support yet, but Rise Ultimate is going to be available. That would bankrupt his Jane of any mana, so it would just be attempting to put Fook 1 on top. Although Blue Buff's going to be traded off here, so that could be a play. So now, I mean, Jane and Fook 1 could show up on the bottom side as fast as possible. Slows and Zodiac to play a little bit more defensively. If they step up again, they are going to get ulted on, which you can see is kind of being postured right now by Fuquan and Jane in the corner of that map. Sora, can we get it? That's a hook. There's an ultimate potentially to be had here, and there we go. That is bad. That's a stun. The traps don't quite hit, but it's going to be a kill on the Slows. And yet again, the bot lane is punished, Quincy.
Speak about if they punish those flashes, right? They punish it multiple times. They arguably solo win the game off of those flashes, maybe. I mean, Slows is now falling the second time. Viego with a kill, Wise with a kill, Jinx with a kill. Good luck playing against that one. Also, the Jinx that was down CS now up in CS, and they might just actually keep playing for this one. Not for the dive, but just for the plate instead. It will just be one plate close to the second one. This one not quite falling. And Yoshino's just proxy farming against Sunmo. That's very disrespectful. But I like the Jazz. He saw that Tommy was bot side, so what does he really have to worry about?
And the thing is I love this from Yoshino. If you've got the mana sustain, which he does because he's got the catalyst, the reason you do this is because, like, okay, what is the solution? Like, Ornn's going to take a bunch of damage. Sunmer has to burn a bunch of mana just to make sure he doesn't die in this lane up against the minions, or he's going to have to crash. And if you respond to it with Tamriel or No-Go or somebody like that, guess who gets bullied more? The bottom lane, who burnt their flashes earlier. Now the flash is back up, so it's a little harder to operate on. But the idea, like, Team Flash, from game number 1, like they're not doing stuff like this in game number 1. I know maybe it's a different game, it's different players, it's a different situation, but like this is a completely different team tactically than what we saw in game number 1, and I'm not really sure why. It seems like, I don't know, maybe the other players were upset by the fact that Ikigai and TQ are in, so they just they were like, we're not going to try very hard in game number 1, but they've done so much better as a result of game 2 and 3. Looking much more like the Flash that we've become more accustomed to as the split has gone on.
Yes, as we say that. Next move coming up by the side of Team Flash, just securing some vision around this Drake area, not shortly before the Drake itself. And Box just won't have any of that, right? Just defending this control ward very dearly, and rightfully so. I mean, they were able to force them away. Without both AD carries really being there. I mean, you don't want to fight 2v2 against the Worm with melee champions. That seems like a very bad idea. Even with being slightly ahead, it's probably not what you really want to go for. What they, however, want to go for is probably the Swift Herald push and just dropping the Swift Herald right there. Maybe before looking for a gank angle, that would be a potential 3v3. That seems a bit more winnable for Flash's side, but I think that's something where Box might just find a comeback. And I think they will just go for the safe Herald play and just maybe use it here. Actually, they are taking the time on this one and not just quite deciding to drop it here, as they might just get one plating either way. They do.
Yeah, the big thing is they have to get through half of a second plate in order to really make it valuable, because then you crack 2 plates instead of just the one. So right now, if you drop it, you get 1.5, and it ended up being at like 1.5 plates remaining, and then it's weird. So you need to knock off half a plate. So the optimal time to use it is right when you're starting, because your first couple auto attacks will likely crush the first bit of it, as that's going to be Zodiac getting aggressed against at least a little bit. Will they step up? Puddin, I think, wants to try to get some more off of this plate, this turret. Not going to be happening yet, though. More damage. Jane here. Nugu's loping around the back. Doesn't quite have it. And there's the second plate. That's what I was hoping that they would wait until the wave was about to crash so that Puddin could step up and get this all at once instead of having to, make the risk happen underneath the tower. But with the support of Jane, especially with Nugu being down about half his health bar or something like that, it was a lot easier. And now, they're just gone completely defensive. This is gone. Slows is stuck in a really bad position. He's going to have the flash. The flash isn't even going to matter. He's just going to die. And Puddin gets the kill.
I expected to be more angry about the flash, but because that's so unnecessary, right? We have seen earlier what happened when his flash was down. Him dying twice, but this is the third time. He just flashed for absolutely no benefit, just winning 2 seconds or something, which is pretty whatever in the grand scheme of things. They lose the first turret anyway. He drops down anyway. At the end of the day, with the Herald push being down and the team just kind of selling slow, that's the end of the play. And Flash now stampeding ahead. 3,000 gold they are in the lead. The next trick is up and alive. Their positioning not being ideal, as I just know blew quite a bit of ultimates, especially the realm from Jane.
Yes.
But I don't think Box can take the Drake, so it's very, very fine for Flash. Also, Yoshida walking all the way up. He could just go for a Malphite ultimate play, but he probably goes against it as the resources are still not there for the carries.
Yeah, I like that Yoshida is standing between like 3 members of the squad and still just doesn't care. It's like 3 people right on top of him.
Shot.
Yeah, that's something else. He just knows that there's no way for them to kill him. All he has to do is ult away. He's got Flash. He's got plenty of opportunities. Team Flash winning the bot side of the map this hard, too. Again, Yoshino has to do nothing. He's down 5 farm. It doesn't matter. Actually, he's probably even in farm roughly with the opposing tank. But it just doesn't matter because he doesn't care.
Yeah, he's absolutely even in CS. Second Drake also already being taken. And also speaking of the Swift-tail push, I think that was kind of funny because I was probably... not positively surprised by the fact that they didn't immediately drop the Herald. Then you explain in detail how they really have to do it, with like the dropping the plating half and then pulling the Herald, and then Team Flash just not doing it the correct way anyway. It was kind of a fun sequence in a way.
Yes.
With the Jet Wilbur play in the dive, it was looking kind of fine, but not so fine for Box, right? They kind of sold slows, and slows not even reacting correctly, burning the flash hit again. Also now having to go Gale Force on the failures to compensate for the lack of flashes all the time, just having a bit of mobility. Maybe you should have picked Fresh, I don't know. We addressed this earlier, and now he has at least 1 tool against the Malphite, but can you ever kill this Malphite without the Kraken Slayer? I'm not so sure.
It'll be difficult. You do very much have Victor, who is a pretty big proponent to being able to rip through tanks in a lot of circumstances. The Leandries is going to help. You're just losing the other side of the map, though. Rift Herald, is it worth it? Is it worth it, guys? What is that? 25% of a tower's health in exchange for the entire bottom tower to your Rise and your Viego. Yashino, again, proving us right. Okay, he has Flash, he has Ultimate. There he is. He's just going to ult away.
Yeah.
Conrio could pop this on the top tower, maybe pull that, but no one's around to collect the gold. It's going to be slows. It's gonna be Zodiac, but you just don't care. You just don't. It's like Box and Flash are playing 2 different games right now. It's like Box is like, okay, we're gonna do this and this and this, and Team Flash is like, I don't care what you do. I'm just gonna run around the map, and you're not gonna be able to do anything. His Rise Ultimate is gonna put multiple members into the backline as we have a bit of assassination. Fook1 and Jane in there, and in the midst of everything, Nugu is gonna go down now. Excited is Puddin, who's gonna be able to put out some damage if he's able to get within range of a couple of different members. As Zodiac is gonna slow him down, but now Jane has that E, has the root, everything else to come through. 2 members going down here for the side of Box Esports is Puddin and Jane. Again, they're putting on a performance, if you know what I'm saying.
And I think Team Flash is doing this game with Rise what Box wanted to do last game with the Talia pick. Just absolutely snowballing the sidelines out, and we kind of see how it really plays out with another Realm Warp play. Definitely beautiful to see. As it started off with Sora hitting the stretch line, and Realm Warp into the back line, and yeah, you just win all the DPS checks, even through Exhaust on the side. Exhausting Fook1, also he could just Heartbreaker over the wall and just rejoin the fight after he's done being exhausted. And now Puddin and Jane. Jane also Giga Chat just flashing forward for the Wound Prison slow just now, but still enough of a slow for the chase down to come in for Puddin. He gets excited once more, doesn't get any more follow-up kills, just those 2. But I say just those 2. 5,000 gold is the lead. This Rift Herald, that's what we sacrificed the tier 2 to it for, by the way. This Rift Herald, will it take the bounty on its own? I think it will. At least it's an objective bounty, but you much rather just don't fall as much behind, so you don't even need bounties. So
no.
very questionable macro play by Box in the last few minutes. Maybe we praised them too much for game 1.
Perhaps, yeah. I don't know how much. Maybe it was a difference of the subs. It didn't look like it from our perspective. And again, the subs were playing really good League of Legends, but maybe again it has much more to do with map control and things like that to be able to communicate properly. Because it has seriously been a very different Flash that we've been watching over the last few games compared to Box Esports. Specifically mid lane, I do want to give a bunch of credence there because again, Nogo has been such a good member of this squad for Box Esports, such a pivotal member when they find their successes. And Jane, after game 1, I had some worries about. I know the RE wasn't particularly strong. Goodness gracious, the Cinder was insane, and now the Rise in this game has done so much work to be able to bring this team back, to be able to bring them back into a position where they are now going to be threatening Team Secret with potential relegation tournament, which seems like the most likely outcome after a series like this, right? Like they beat Team Flash, now they're up a series, then they put themselves in a situation where like it is necessary to either you have to beat Team Wales and lose to Cerberus, or you have to beat Cerberus, lose to Team Wales just to tie, and that's assuming that Box Esports doesn't come out and beat Wales also. So like there's. Like I said, this win is so much bigger for Team Flash in the grand scheme of things that, like, I know Box didn't have much kind of anything in this, but more than anything else, they're kind of practicing for the relegation tournament at this point, just making sure that they're going to be up to snuff against some of the other VCSB teams and things that qualify. But that is not to say that Team Flash didn't come in here with a bunch of respect and things to be able to make this happen.
And they're definitely testing something, right? I mean, testing 2 different players in the first game, losing a close game, which is, of course, not great, but still something where you can see that they are substitutes are definitely up to the task and could perform theoretically. Also, seeing Jane, the Ari might just not be it, but they found 2 great picks which he can really work greatly with. Maybe they just need Nymever to just get him rid of his Ari driver's license, as Jane should definitely not play this one any further. But speaking of that, the game now kind of extending a little bit. Next wave spawning in a bit more than 10 seconds. Would just be the soul point already for Side of Flash. It would be Hextech Soul, very strong of course. And they are just now slowly starting to get the scaling components in, just now with the ornament on Sunma, with the unspoken parasite. But just not enough, right? This time you're not 4,000 gold down, but actually you're like 7,000 gold down. You are staring down a potential soul point very early on, and you just won't get there with the scaling before Team Flash just spawns all over you.
Especially because the number 1 damage healer on your team and Slow
the
is the
gap.
one that is. Yeah, the AD gap is ridiculous. You're talking probably an entire item for Puddin that is currently ahead. Not to mention Soul Point is going to be driven home in 5 minutes time. So 24 minutes into this game, you're worried about potentially dying. As it's Yoshino, no flash. They're chasing him down. The sun's going to come out. They're going to kick him back into the rest of the team. Look at how many ultimates they've had to invest into just killing Yoshino on their own. Slows does pick up the kill. That was Sunmer ultimate, Tamrio ultimate, Slows ultimate, and Zodiac. 4 ultimates, Crincy. 4 to kill 1 player.
Yes, but Yoshino also kind of into that one. Why is he in there? Why does he need to ult out? And why is he still getting caught up by that?
I don't know. Yeah,
And if you
that's
die,
another great question.
and I think if you die anyway, just be a chat and just ult into them. Just deal a little bit of damage,
Yeah,
annoy
just
them a
throw
little bit.
damage, Just try
yeah.
to full assassinate Slows and just make
Yeah,
make
but
it
you're
for a
still right.
flash or a heal or something. Like just force him out.
Even this clownish play forces so many ultimates that they just now can start barreling at the spawn of it, basically. So even this dumb play might have just turned out to be a correct play.
Sunmer just got trolled a little bit because they call for the TP. They say, hey, let's go, let's fight this. And then they turn off the Baron immediately. Trapline goes down right on top of the ward. They are ready and raring to go. They're like, okay, teleport here. Immediate flash from Sunmer. Like not even a comment, like not even a discussion, not even anything. Just immediate flash from Sunmer, who is now down both of his summoners as a result of that play. So after that, again, ultimates were down. You are going to get them back before the next really big fight, but you are going to be down 2 important summoner spells that you can use for cross mapping. You can use inside of team fights, things like that. That Sunmer is going to be missing as one notable addition.
And that makes Yoshino's death play actually look even a bit better, right? I mean, he died, but he didn't really burn any summoner spell or anything. I'll actually burn a lot of resource for the enemy team. So just now in the extended sequence, it looks more than fine.
Okay. Fishing with the Rise ultimate is a bit of an interesting play here because you do have the Braum, so it's like super easy to just not take damage. You pop up the shield, but I respect it. I respect that Jane and Fook1 have just been really on point in this game, really connecting on a lot of different plays and making themselves known across the map to ensure that their team is getting what they need in terms of pressure. Team Flash right back to the Baron buff, probably wanting to force out a team fight of some kind. There's TP from Yoshino. They know Ornn is going to be really late to the party. As it's already down half of its health bar, they got to find a way to engage. Sora is just here pressing buttons to make sure that's going to happen. Yoshino into the backline gets slows for just a little bit. The Baron is going to be regenning as well, as now the re-engage could come through from Box Esports as they have Sunmer here now. They back off just before it is time to come in. Whew. All right.
That was
Box.
a really bad fight by Flash.
Yeah.
They should get more. They force a fight, 5v4, huge gold lead, but they are thinking the Baron and they aren't really fighting the hard engage. So it's actually Zodiac dropping very low, but it's also Sora. So Sora has to get out. He's basically a non-factor in this situation. And Nugu on the Victor being surprisingly tanky can at least survive like an initial burst situation. So Summer actually has time to rejoin, and they fear this huge Forge God play coming through while taking the Baron, and rightfully so, Flash pull away from the Baron. Gotta say though, they also didn't really lose much. Just a bit of time, a bit of a whoopsie moment for them, and they can just play this game again once or twice more, and if it works once, it's fine, right? As long as they are safe enough to pull off of the Baron, it's actually okay to do this again.
Yeah, it's funny because Nugu was actually on the bottom side of the map there without TP, so they could have been without Victor, which would have been a huge takeaway in terms of the damage output of this Box Esports squad. But they're not going to. Instead, they have a minute and a half until the next dragon is going to be up. They're going to set top lane to push. They're now looking at Baron, which is interesting. They're going to clear out the rest of the river here. And yeah, they're going to start it right back up as there's vision here. They do know it's canceled out, but they're standing directly on top of this Scuddler vision. It's down to 5,000 health, and they have not even been able to step into the river yet. Do not turn. Just take the Baron. Take the Baron, please. Stop turning. Good lord. All right, now the Ornn ultimate to come out, try to stop them on the backside. They're not going to be able to get anything. Big ultimate from Yoshino to be able to kind of deny everybody else any sort of access into this fight. And now I think Flash just wants to wash their hands of the situation. I don't think they want to re-engage in any capacity. That's exactly correct. They might be denied the soul point here, but honestly, if I were them, I would just walk at top lane and say, hey, you have to respond to the top lane poke. If you don't, you're going to lose top tower. You might lose top inhibitor tower. You might lose top inhibitor. So be really careful about this if you're Box Esports. Tomrio included. I mean, there's 3 members. There's 3 members here.
Yeah. And there's still more than half a minute for this Drake, so they can easily just reset it in time and just get positioning back into this Drake and don't even have to give up a Constellation Drake and just drop all right now. So they can probably just get this Baron. I mean, they just already got it. And just to inflict this Baron, the priority from the side lanes potentially, and the mid lane itself, while they are walking down this mid lane right now. And with this Hextech gate as well, right? Just easily be in position for this Hextech Soul and probably get this one as well. They are so far ahead right now. It's 6,000 gold. It is a Baron being on them. Ornaments are there, but they are be damned as they only really soften the blow. And Yoshino, his ultimate is up soon again, like 20 seconds more for it. The Drake will spawn just right now. But Box also can't just really start it off and rush it down. This shouldn't be possible.
No, I don't think they can. They don't necessarily have all this much damage. The Victor's still a little bit behind, and more importantly, Slows is really behind. Azora's going to blast cone over, immediately hook in, try to find something, as they're going to push this members out of the river. Now Hextech Soul is available for the squad, down to 5,000 health. Big ultimate to the back line for Yoshino, as 3 members stacked up right there. No additional rockets. It's going to be a huge knockup coming through. Jane and Puddin trying to go forward, trying to get the damage out. They're going to bring down multiple members on the front line, and that's going to be Zodiac as well as another falling on the front line. Slows underneath that tower right now. 5 members stand strong for the side of Team Flash, and routed is the side of Box Esports as they're going to lose the Hextech Soul as well. Jane fancies himself a fight up against Nogo and against Tomrio, as both of them are kind of hanging out in the area. Puddin as well. They don't have any damage dealers really at the Dragon because they just simply do not care. And now
it just takes half an hour, but it's okay. Yeah, I can just easily start it. But I mean, as long as Tomrio isn't around, it just can take some time to really get this Hextech away. Very good fight played again by the side of Team Flash. I was a bit worried because it was just unstoppable force without much follow-up onto Slows, who had the red one, the dangerous weapon for failures. And he could actually heal off a bit against Yoshino. But the thing is, as we here see the play again, here he engages onto it. The follow-up is kind of half there, but actually not really there. And also Sunbar having a good re-engage, having his mini Malphite ultimate with the searing charge of the Ornn. But here's the problem. The front to back is easily won for Puddin against Slows, as Slows can only hit Yoshino, while Puddin can easily, with his higher range, higher DPS output, get the soft members on the side of Box Esports low, and get excited all of them, and then the DPS sector is already favorable for them, gets even more favorable, so Box Esports has no way to win this fight whatsoever. The Hextech Soul itself might be dead in this situation, as it will just be a 3-0 fight for the side of Team Flash. They get the Hextech Soul on the way out anyway, and for Slow, it's just unfortunate, right? The Malphite just ults into your face, you try to kite around towards the eastern side, but there's still the bot in tier 1 2 standing, which is very unfortunate for him. So he really had no chance.
It is, yeah, Team Flash now has just full control. I mean, they're up 10,000 gold to 26 minutes of the game. They have Hexel. They've got a Jinx who's on 3 items, going to be on Infinity Edge after enough time here. You've got a Rise on 3 completed items, including the Saracen Rod. Like, you're not going to be able to catch this team in damage anytime soon. Like, Slows needs basically Infinity Edge completed after this next fight and to even have a chance. And even then, it's still going to be risky. Again, the Gale Force is necessary just to try to dodge out some of the skill shots, but I don't think it's going to help him in being able to tear through Yoshino or any other frontliners that kind of exist right now, as this team slowly ramping up as this game has gone on. Now they've hit like the pinnacle of when they are the most strong. They've got so much engaged, so much frontline for a team that's sitting at the brink of annihilation at relegations. Again, even if they end up getting to relegations, or like, there's almost no way a team beats this squad. Like, this team is just too good. Like, this is a team that could have been pushing for playoffs if this had started earlier
That's
on.
a fight.
We're ultimately going to get popped, not going to hit Sora. Instead, just going to get driven off as Jane continues the split push. They're going to rotate over here to try to clear the wave as fast as possible. Kick from them onto Jane to try to get them underneath of the tower. Now a bunch of the flux is actually down on here for Jane to be able to team fight with a lot of damage going down on it. Tomrio Rocket's going to be able to get Puddin excited, and now it's Puddin to be able to crack the tower ultimate in the backline from Yoshino, and that's going to be a huge play from Puddin. He picks up 3 over the course of that one. 1 kill going over, and that's all 5 members right there. Box Esports going down as Team Flash. They didn't look great in game number 1. Maybe it was the subs, maybe it wasn't. You know what does matter? The fact that they end up bringing the series back, and a 2-1 for them gets them that much closer to not falling to relegations. Team Secret is put in a really rough position. They have to beat at least Wales or Cerberus in order to stay in competition to ensure that they might not fall to relegations instead.
Yeah, and what a respectable comeback by the side of Team Flash just after losing this first game. With the substitutions, of course, not really looking like the best way of things. Either way, as we see this one, it is just a following, of course, for the side of Team Flash. Jane, on this wise, really finding their identity, punishing these flashes that were down for the bot lane over and over again. I think that arguably being the deciding factor to really just generate this first goal in general for the side of Team Flash. And then, despite being on paper outscaled, just winning skirmish after skirmish, getting Drake after Drake, and no way, no chance for the side of Box Esports to really contest anything there. They didn't even really try to do much against it. I mean, ultimately they had to, but before that, it was just Team Flash just getting all these small victories, and that was just enough for them to really snowball this game, and Box just didn't find a way in.
No, and again, for Box Esports, it doesn't matter that much. They're prepping everything else. The fact that they had that first game under lock, they're still trying to figure out exactly what they want to do. They're still trying to figure out the laning phase. I do have a little bit of worry for them walking into the promotion tournament, because this seems like a team that, like, again, Sunmer isn't a bad player. I've seen Sunmer before. Nogo is a really good player. Tom Rio is a really good player. Slows and Zodiac feel like there's 3 players on this roster that feel like VCSB players, and then they have 2 kind of veterans. And so when it comes to the promotion tournament, this seems like the team that is likely to be pushed to be knocked out in the wrong circumstance, especially if the laning phase goes poorly. Think about some of the other squads that we've seen kind of come in as this like addition to the VCS, and I would not be shocked to see some of them be able to push Box Esports. So I do have that worry. So by the end of the split, I do want to see them clean up something that they can use inside the promotion tournament. I don't care. They're playing against some of the best teams here inside of the VCS. What I want to see is that they have some strategy that they can consistently go back to that will lead to them having some success. And so far, it feels like even when they found their wins, there's just no guaranteed writing on the wall way to guarantee that they're going to find anything like that so far. So that's my one kind of knock of Box after kind of what has been a really disastrous split. They only have 1 series remaining after this, which is tomorrow, by the way, 6 a.m. up against Saigon Buffalo, which another series that literally does not matter in the slightest for the most part.
Yeah, and that we just now saw it in the gold graph, right? There was not even a single bit of purple there, just a little bit of those inchlings in the first few minutes, but other than that, Flash really just rolling over it. What kind of annoys me is like this one death they had, which was like Yoshino kind of inting in the mid lane, where he was just kind of flexing with how tanky he really is, how many ultimates he can really force, and just making it look funny for the side of them. Otherwise, it would have been a perfect game, as Box actually was taking down 2 turrets within the game, and it was kind of surprising to me that Victor on the side of Nugu was dealing a lot more damage than Jane, but Jane's damage, that low damage he did was very effective in really enabling his whole team around him and also himself to some extent. So Flash very fine with that one. And yeah, I agree. Box not really finding their groove for the third game. And considering relegations is up on the horizon for them, they need to find something else.
Yeah, I have that worry walking in, but I don't think that's not something to concern ourselves with right now. We'll talk about that when we get closer. Box Esports obviously heading for relegations, and there's still a competition because right now Flash can still make it out, Secret can still make it out. It could still be Saigon Buffalo heading into that bottom bracket. Just as a forewarning to everybody, with a 5-8 kind of record right now, Saigon's only half a game above Flash. And after our next series of the day, Team Secret takes on Wales, which could be a huge series, not only for Team Secret to get out of relegations, put a lot of pressure on the Saigon Buffalo, but for Wales, looking to try to, honestly, right now, if I'm being 100% with you, feels like Cerberus has been faltering enough for GAM to want to pick them as the number 1 seed no matter what. But Wales coming into the end of the split, wanting to be able to be, higher on in the standings, maybe wanted to take the 2 seed so that they can't be picked by GAM. They're right behind SBTCE. And given the way they're playing, I wouldn't be shocked that they would be kind of coming full force at freight speed, trying to end the split on a really good note. So we're going to be back in half an hour, 25 minutes, something. Just depends on how long the break is going to be for. It's usually a little bit variant, but half an hour is usually a good indicator. So about that 20, 25 minutes, tune back in, and we'll be back with our second series of the day with Wales taking on Team Secret.